Okay, here we go. Drive time, Tuesday afternoon, 14 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. It's cold, kids, because it's December, and that's how the weather works. We've been over this. Porter is a weather expert. He's helped us understand that as we get later in the calendar, the weather typically gets colder. Looking for maybe some rain and snow today. It's about 40 degrees, cloudy, here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. And as it is every single day, it is good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. Porter Larson behind the glass today, producing the program, booking the program. We have a great guest list to talk about a bunch of different things. Of course, the story that everybody here locally is honed in on is what's next for Kalani Sitake. We had a crazy news cycle yesterday. At one point, the reports are that they called a emergency meeting down in Provo for the football team to gather, where it was expected that Kalani was going to tell his team that he was leaving. And then, if you've ever had the question, what does a cookie look like in human form? The CEO of Crumble Cookie comes to save the day. And if you think I'm joking, I want you to picture in your head what you think the CEO of Crumble Cookie looks like. Then go to his tweet and click on his profile. He looks like a sugar cookie as a person. And good for him. He's built a company of tasty cookies. I had a Crumble cookie yesterday. I'm not hating on him. But apparently cookie money is saving the day down in Provo. And as we sit here today, we have no information as far as how this is going to play out. We'll get into it today. And, oh, by the way, BYU football is playing the biggest game it's had in potentially 40-plus years on Saturday, Big 12 championship style. Obviously, we'll continue to discuss the dynamic with Utah football this week, where Friday appears to be the deadline for Witt to inform the school as to what his future plans are. It feels that it's more or less a consensus that this is it for Kyle, and Morgan Scalley slides over one seat. So the coaching carousel, the college football coaching carousel, continues to spin round and round and round in just the most inconvenient time of the year. If there's any proof that this stuff needs to be changed, it's what's happened with the news cycle over the past couple of weeks. Lane Kiffin, his introductory press conference at LSU was yesterday. So Ole Miss is sitting here about to go to the CFP, wondering what that's going to look like without their head coach. BYU is headed to the Big 12 championship game, and looks like Kalani's going to coach no matter what. But if Kalani informs his team that he's leaving and then coaches in the game, what sort of distraction does that cause? This has to stop. It is chaos. It's signing day tomorrow, by the way. It doesn't carry the same gravitas as it once did, but it is signing day tomorrow. The transfer portal window opens up after the new year. Alabama released some schedule changes today, which indicates another problem in the world of college football that we'll get into, but a lot to do on the show. Hopefully you're having a good week, a good Tuesday as you're kind of making your way through the work week. Little Monday Night Football last night saw the New England Patriots make easy work of Jackson Dart and the New York Giants. Jackson took a couple of big-time hits. Get down, young man. Live to play another day. We know that you pride yourself in being a football player, but, man, he got decleated a couple of times. 33-15. The Patriots have won 10 straight games. They're 11-2. The Giants 2-11. So a little NFL, mostly college today, but your Week 14 of pro football will get going with a Thursday night tilt. Coming up between the Cowboys and the Lions. Wow, that should be a good one. Big one as well in Detroit at Ford Field. The Cowboys have kept their playoff hopes alive with a win against the Chiefs last week. The Lions have faltered a bit as of late. So all the latest on the pro and college football landscape. The Utah Jazz had a nice win last night. They had a back-to-back against the Houston Rockets, and they were able to get a win. Bounce-back game from Keontae. Looked really good. Of course, marketing being marketing. Mark Stein, the latest report that the Jazz will look to trade Larry Markkinen before the trade deadline. Not sure how that's going to go. Jazz are heading back east for a couple of East Coast games. They're going to take on the Nets and the New York Knickerbockers before coming home for a Sunday tilt. So we're inching closer and closer to Christmas. And as I say every year, when it comes to the landscape of pro basketball, Christmas is when we kind of understand the hand that we've been dealt. Who knew the World Cup draw was on Friday? Raise your hands, kids. Who knew? World Cup draw on Friday?
I knew.
You did not. You're lying.
You told me this morning.
Well, we are going to cover the World Cup. Sorry, it's the biggest sporting event in the world. We're going to have a couple of guests covering the World Cup because I think it's really fun. It's really cool. And we might have a rep from our market, namely Diego Luna. Who knew MLS Cup was December the 6th between Miami and Vancouver? Raise your hand. Liar. You're lying. You did not know until just now.
I did.
Liar.
Well, you You answered the question as you asked the question.
So now everybody knows is what you're saying.
Everyone was raising their hand. So.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Not to get down on your trivia.
No. It's totally fair. I'll admit I didn't know until I saw a tweet. It's Lionel Messi in Miami. They're going to take on Vancouver, apparently.
If it's not RSL, I don't care.
Well, and also, what are we doing? Like, I felt like the playoffs started 2 months ago. I didn't realize we're still playing soccer in December, but we do have MLS Cup.
I think American football kind of took over the the landscape here.
Yeah,
locally.
it's fair to say. It's why the MLS decision to change to the international calendar, I think, is somewhat misguided. Good luck going up against college and pro football in America MLS. But anyway, I digress. The Mammoth continue to struggle. So we got a tough situation with our hockey team. You have to wonder if Coach Torney is in a little bit of trouble. But we got a lot to do today. Good guest list. The voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, our first guest. Right out of the gates, we'll move over to Max Brown, former college quarterback, and now doing some work for our friends at ESPN. Gordon Monson, Salt Lake Tribune, my former radio partner. He wrote a piece on Kalani today. So we'll bring Gordon live in studio. Tim McMahon, our NBA Daily Assist. And then contractually obligated to bring in Dave Fox. So not sure how that's going to go. Bill Riley, Max Brown, Gordon Monson, Tim McMahon, Dave Fox, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. Quick announcement for our YouTube viewers. I am standing for the show today because when you're old, you wake up and there's just another part of your body that decides to say, hey, it's my turn to hurt. And today it's my lower back, just so you know.
Traveling, as I mentioned before we came on air, it sounds like you've been knocked off your hot yoga routine. The weather is changing.
It is indeed.
As we've come to know, you come to this show for the most accurate weather forecast in the market, to be clear. So, there's a lot of things playing into probably your body feeling this way. Hey, solar flares also, Spence.
Huh?
Big time solar storm today. So you may be feeling it.
A big time. Wait, that sounds like somebody that talks about Mercury being in retrograde. Or
probably, but.
Solar? What are you talking about?
But there's solar storms will affect like our radio sometimes being on air. They affect the weather. Sometimes they affect us a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
So my lower back problem is as a result of a solar flare? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe more so from your traveling and all the turkey and I don't know. Maybe you got off the routine a little bit. But hey, I'm just giving you all the variables maybe. Not to bring astrology into it.
Or just crushing some Russian deadlifts this morning.
Did you?
No, but hit the gym. It was a mistake. I did not know Lane Kiffin did high yoga, but that kind of tracks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't he a Northeast guy?
No, he's from the South, isn't he? I don't know.
He looks like a Northeast guy.
He does. Look,
the vests.
It's a punchable face. It was a punchable face. I'm not going to lie.
The vests and whatnot.
More punchable face, Lane Kiffin or Ted Cruz?
Ted Cruz.
Put that up on our poll page.
Sorry to not.
We're going to give away some
hesitate.
we're going to give away some Effervescence tickets to the winner. Text in more punchable face, Ted Cruz, Lane Kiffin. That's our poll question of the day. Anyway, Porter Larson producing today. Our first guest will be the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. But before Riley stops by, a Tuesday afternoon courtesy of our good friends and your good friends at Prize Picks. It's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Prize Picks, guys, holiday season, best time of year for sports. We've got bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It is all happening at once, and while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, there is one place where it always feels good to be right, and that is with our good friends at Prize Picks. Some new features out this month, namely early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out on those winnings before the game even finishes. And if your fantasy football season is basically over, we're kind of entering fantasy football playoff time, you can still play fantasy football every week on Prize Picks where you pick your favorite players, and when they hit their projections every week, you win some cash, and there's no draft required. Here's the deal. They're giving you free money. Get that right now. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right. This feels like it's as big of a sports story that we've had here in a number of different years. maybe ever since the Jazz decided to move on from Mitchell and Gobert and Quinn didn't want to work for this new ownership group and Dennis Lindsey takes off. 4 or 5 years ago now, the Jazz broke down what was a really good basketball team in the name of kind of rebuilding. And we're sitting here, 4+ years later, and they haven't made a ton of progress. So that felt very hefty. That felt very notable. And certainly whatever decision they decided to go with, it was going to cause both local and national headlines and waves, and it did. But this Kalani to Penn State stuff is something that continues to permeate throughout the course of both the local and national media. And since you and I last spoke yesterday afternoon, it was interesting, some of the comments that Kalani was making during our show or right before we went on air, kind of making the rounds a little bit on social, but I hadn't had a chance to listen to all of them until I got off air. Then I listened to his comments yesterday in their entirety. And he very much did not even come close to denying these stories, which I thought was interesting. And from the Kalani perspective here, there are a couple of dynamics that I wonder how he's kind of processing and working through. Because on Saturday, Big 12 championship game down in Arlington, where BYU finds themselves as nearly a 2-touchdown underdog, this is the biggest football game BYU has played since 1984, that Holiday Bowl that ultimately allowed them to win a national championship. It's the biggest football game this program has had in over 40 years. And based off of BYU being a P4 team now in the Big 12, you could even make an argument that it's kind of bigger than that. Now, a national championship is a national championship, and several people look at that national championship and kind of dismiss it as something that was a moment in time and a rather unique setup that allowed them to win it. Whatever. It's a banner. They earned it. It's a national championship. I could make an argument that advancing to the 12-team CFP with other P4 peers, obviously there's a G5 team that will be in there, is a better accomplishment than winning a national championship with a whack schedule, respectfully. I can make that argument, and I don't think I'd be crazy to do so, meaning this is among, if not the biggest game that BYU football has had in a long time. And the fact that, intertwined into this BYU season tapestry currently is this conversation that's very legitimate about what their head coach is going to do, brings in several different scenarios that are worth unlocking here. Namely, how are you going to prepare your football team for Saturday? Even if this distraction, and I am going to call it a distraction, even though Kalani said during his comments, I don't want this to be a distraction. Too late, too late, too late. It is too late. It already is. No matter what you say to your players, in the modern day and age of inundation of information, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all these kids have cell phones. They all have Twitter. They all have Instagram or the Talk or whatever the hell the kids are doing these days. Probably something I don't know about. So they're aware of these conversations. They're in the loop. There's nothing you can say at this juncture that removes the thought from their mind that you are riding with us, unless we hear an announcement prior to Saturday, and it has to be prior to Saturday. If it's not prior to Saturday, we can say he's as good as gone. There has to be an announcement in the next couple of days that you have locked Kalani in. And if there's not, Saturday feels like it's borderline impossible. Even if this stuff was not a part of the dynamic, who out there would honestly say BYU is going to beat Texas Tech on Saturday? Do I think they have a shot? Of course I do. I watched the first game. They were a couple of turnovers away, a couple of chunk plays away from being right there. Like, yes, they got smoked, but based off of what they've been able to do since then, and if you look back on that game, Baron Morton's numbers, he was just average. BYU's defense in the red zone was great. LJ Martin wasn't fully healthy. There is a world where BYU hangs with Texas Tech, but to me, that world exists without this, without the conversation around their head coach. And now that that comes into play, what does that do Saturday against one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country, which I think is like the biggest storyline that nobody's talking about? Finally, we'll continue to talk about this. We have some really good guests here. This is a big moment for Brian Santiago, okay? So I don't know Brian that well personally. He's always been really nice to me. Every time I see him, he's super nice. Big 12 Media Days, he gave Sean and I nearly 30 minutes of what I thought was a very honest assessment of where his athletic department was. But make no mistake, Brian Santiago inherited a 25-year labor of love project from Tom Homo that was in, and still is, in a very, very good spot with BYU athletics. The success of the football team, the ability of the basketball team now to acquire some of the best talent in the country. But that's Tom's labor. This is Brian has inherited what Tom did, okay? So as the story goes, the hire of Brian Santiago, most people believe, was made as a result of Brian's relationships with rich, powerful BYU alums, namely Danny Ainge, namely Ryan Smith. They golf all the time at that Provo. What's the Provo Golf Club? Glen something. What is it?
Glenmore?
Glenmore. No, it's not that. It's
I don't know.
I don't know either. The Provo Golf Course where all the BYU bros hang out, and, Brian golfs with Danny, and he golfs with Ryan, and he knows all the rich BYU alums, including the human cookie that saved the day yesterday. Shout out to Jason, whatever his name is.
NutriCost guy, too. They're getting in with the supplement guys. Or
I don't know who that is.
I don't know.
It's called NutriCost?
Another one of the guys who's apparently coming in clutch.
It's called NutriCost? That sounds
Don't quote me.
That sounds above board entirely. Is it an MLM? Do we know?
Don't quote me.
Have your ward members sell it and then don't pay them and take all the money. Anyway, Brian was hired by all accounts because he is friends with the rich BYU bros, the tech bros that are bankrolling the athletic department. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with that dynamic getting Brian the job. You cannot compete in collegiate athletics if you don't have a cookie bro or a NutriCost bro or a whatever bro that is willing to step up and bankroll your program. Utah needs a cookie bro. We've talked about this. I think we have some beef bros. We have some cattle bros. We need a cookie bro. Can a Utah alum please start a cookie company and save the day and tweet out your front-facing, wanting high fives, digital pats on the back because it's time for you to stop baking cookies and get on the sideline, whatever the hell that means? You need it, and you have it, okay? And Brian is friends with all these people. And as a result of those relationships, maybe you can continue to keep the donations coming in because you have to have that. Without that, you're screwed in the current landscape of collegiate athletics. However, the back conversation on the other side of the hire of Brian Santiago is several people that aren't necessarily powerful BYU alums, but are involved with BYU athletics or have been involved with the institution. They weren't a huge fan of the hire. You could see it on social. I've heard it from people that have been down there, friends that have been part of teams and athletic departments, not huge fans of Brian Santiago. If Kalani gets away and they decide to slide Jay Hill over a seat, well, what that means is BYU's done their calculation and they say, okay, if Kalani's going to cost us $11 million, we're going to stick with our model, which is not being competitive with pay. And we're going to pay Jay Hill $3.5 million, and we're going to save $7-8 million, and Kalani can go, and we believe Jay can do the job, and we'll save the money. And look, maybe that works. Jay's a great coach. If it doesn't, this is directly on you. It's a big moment for him, and really intriguing to see how this works out. But we will catch a break. Voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, our first guest, Max Brown, Gordon Monson, Tim McMahon, Dave Fox, off and running on a Tuesday show. Keep it here on ESPN 700.
Or he might
Third
take
down
a
and goal.
quick shot on a quick fade.
Williams the tailback. Motion man Pickett. Utah showing pressure. Here they come on Daniels. Intercepted! There they go up the sideline. 30, 40, 50, 40, 30. Scooby Davis into the open field and into the end zone. It's a house call. It's a pick six. It's a Utah touchdown.
We have some breaking news of sorts, I suppose. It is Pete Thamel, who is very plugged in. Here's the tweet from Pete. That rhyme didn't mean to 10 minutes ago. Sources, BYU coach Kalani Sitake has begun to inform people that he intends to stay at the school. BYU is in the process of putting together a lucrative contract to keep him. He's been one of the main targets at Penn State, which he informed of his decision today. The voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. Tuesday afternoon, Riles, let's just start there. This has been a wild 72-hour news cycle. Looks like it's going to end with Kalani staying in Provo.
It's going to be a pretty lucrative package, I'm thinking. I'm going to guess it's more than just his compensation, though, Spence. These guys are all compensated very, very well. It's going to be about, money for NIL. It's going to be money for his assistants, too. So that's going to be a heck of a package they put together because Penn State has a lot of resources and a lot of money. They looked like by the reports they were throwing at him. So good for him.
Knowing what you know about Kalani, who, of course, was on Kyle's staff for a decade, and, you and I both worked with him, defensive coordinator shows on a weekly basis once upon a time on the West Side. That's for old school listeners. When it comes to what he values, what do you think that looks like? Because we were talking about this throughout the course of the week where, if we're honest, we're a small pond. Kalani's a big fish in a small pond, and he has proof of concept that what he does at BYU works. I think he's won 23 of his last 25 games or something. They're about to compete for a Big 12 championship. And certainly, I don't begrudge anybody for holding on to a job when you feel like there's tremendous security. But I did wonder if there was part of Kalani that would want to say, like, man, I wonder if I can do this at a place like Penn State. Because if you do it at a place like Penn State, then you're talked about with the Ryan Days and the Nick Sabans and the Kirby Smarts, whoever you put in that category. Whoever you put in that tier one category. If Kalani goes to Penn State and does there what he did here, he is talked about on a different category. But knowing him the way you do, his values, in your opinion, kind of sound like what?
Well, they sound like, it's family. He's a family guy first and foremost. And I don't, everybody values money. Let's not kid ourselves here. But he is handsomely compensated as the head coach at BYU and will continue to be. I think what he values is his ability to continue to improve that program and continue his culture down there. We know Kalani. He's a very good guy, great man, excellent communicator, recruiter, and culture builder. And that only goes so far. But can he continue to build on that? Giving him the resources that he needs to build on that. I think that's important to him. He's going to be financially taken care of, him and his family, wherever he goes, whether he stays at BYU or goes to Penn State. And he's not one of these guys that has to have, a boat, a yacht, a million sports cars, things like that. That's not who he is. And, I still consider him to be a very good friend. But what he values is his ability to continue to build his culture, do his thing, and build upon what he's built already. As you just said, 23 wins in the last 25 games. And I'm sure that he felt comfortable there. It's nice to be wowed and wooed, and I'm sure that he's probably given Penn State consideration. But he's built that program there, and he's in a really good position. If they can back that up with more, financial guarantees to continue to keep that rolling or build upon it, I think that's probably what's most important to him.
Is there any part of you that's surprised? Now, we're working off the assumption, according to the Thamel report, that we will hear that Kalani receives an extension from BYU. And while, to your point, the way you just articulated it, no part of me believes Kalani walked in there and said, make me the highest paid coach in the Big 12 or whatever. I do have to operate off the assumption that BYU at least approached what Penn State was offering on the financials. We'll see what it looks like for his assistants. We'll see what it looks like for NIL support. But if the reports are true, it has to mean BYU, for the first time in program history, is actually paying a coach market value. And their entire approach throughout the course of the athletic department has not been that. But it's changing now with Kevin Young and now Kalani. Part of me wondered if they just slide Jay over a seat and say, okay, Kalani, go get your 10, 11 mil. We'll pay Jay 3.5. We're going to save our 8, and we're going to roll with him. Are you surprised that it does sound like BYU stepped up to the table?
No, because I think that they value him and what he does. I like to, I don't know what those numbers are going to be. I'd be surprised if they were comparable to the numbers that were being tossed around by Penn State. But that would, again, I don't know those things. But like I told you, for him, sure, you're not doing this out of the generosity and goodness of your heart. You want to be compensated well for the program that you build. But to the point, I really do believe, probably a bump in compensation for him, but also assistant coaches, because I think he likes the staff that he has down there. Got 2 good coordinators, good assistant coaches, and maybe more importantly, and I think that's kind of where Lane Kiffin was too, I don't think it was so much the salary he was getting as what are we going to be able to go out and get in NIL? What's the money you can guarantee me that we can bring in? Because, Spence, that's now recruiting. Recruiting isn't look at our campus, look at our culture. That's part of it. But the recruiting now is, how much money do we have in our coffers? That's just how it is. And how much money do we have to build a roster? And I would think that that's a big part of it too.
Before we move over to the Utes and your thoughts on now the regular season that was and potential bowl destinations, based off of, BYU's about to play the biggest game they played in 40-plus years. Ole Miss is going to be in the CFP. And, BYU's going to hold on to their coach, it looks like. Ole Miss lost theirs, but chaos and distractions. Who do you – I don't want to say who you pin this on. I don't do radio that way. But is this a calendar issue? Is there a solution? You could never do it in the pros to say you're not allowed to leave to take another job. But in college football, is there something you can put in place where it's like, no, man, if you have a CFP team, if your team's playing for a conference championship, you cannot engage with other schools. I don't know what the answer is. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how you write that in either because, these guys all have agents, and the agents are really doing the work behind the scenes. So, until the calendar changes, I don't know what you can do with this because the fact of the matter is some people are playing, some people aren't. In the NFL, you continue on, but, head coaches aren't moving from one head coaching job to another head coaching job in the NFL. They just aren't because everybody's pretty much on the same plane. But, assistant coaches move, and you're allowed to do that. But, we just have a different tier in college athletics. I think unless you could change the calendar or put some guardrails in, I'm not sure how you're going to be able to guard against this. And then you always have the back channel stuff that, how long have these negotiations been going on behind the scenes with agents and handlers of these different coaches as well? Kiffin played his out way too much in the public eye. And, again, everybody's entitled to do what they want to do here. But I thought the way he handled it could have been handled a little bit better. But until you change the calendar of this is going to be the reality of college athletics.
So over to the Utes, and for the first time, and this is based off of a few things, some things I've been told, Witt getting emotional on senior day, and then his admission after the Kansas game of just how close he was to walking away last year. I think this is it. My understanding is the deadline is Friday. Of course, there's going to be a bowl game. Should be a pretty good one. Vegas Bowl is what we're hearing. And then Morgan slides over a seat. That's just my opinion, Bill, and you can handle that however you want. What do you think?
I don't know, Spence. Here's what I know. He loves coaching still, and he has loved this team this year. To me, I could absolutely see Kyle continuing to coach, but Kyle wants to be competitive. Kyle doesn't want to take a step backwards. Kyle wants to be able to keep up with Texas Tech and BYU and all the different schools in the Big 12, but also nationally as well. So I think I could see him continuing to coach another year or two, especially with the core of players they have coming back and the potential of core of players they have coming back. But if he decided after a 10-win season and a bowl game and maybe an 11th win to walk off into the sunset, I could see that too. But I do know he's not tired, he's not burned out, he's not exhausted, and he still loves coaching. But what he loves more than coaching is he loves winning and being competitive. I think as long as Utah remains competitive both in the Big 12 and in the playoff conversation, I could absolutely see him continuing to coach.
I believe the number is 18 teams in college football won 10 games this year. The reason I bring it up in that context is like 10-2 is an awesome year. It just is.
It is.
And like maybe 80 to 85% of, and that's an inexact number, that's just off the top of my head, 80 to 85% of college football programs at the start of the year, if you said 10-2, and then be right there in the top 15 in the country, do you take that? Most of them would jump at it, certainly. But it's probably a testament, Riles, to Witt himself and what we've become accustomed to, that a 10-2 regular season, a 7-2 in conference season, appears to have met with a little bit of like yeah, all right, good, not great. It is a really good year. How do you articulate the year that Utah just had?
It's what you just said, Spence. If you would have told me before, I said before the season, I thought they'd be 10-2 this year, and I thought 10-2 was going to be good enough to compete. Now I thought they'd be 7-2 in Big 12 play, and I thought that would be good enough for a berth in Dallas. I didn't know how good Texas Tech would be. I thought they were going to be a wild card this year. I thought they could really be good, or maybe it didn't fit. It worked. I didn't expect BYU to be quite this good, and they are. And so I thought Utah at 10-2, and when you win double digits in the regular season in a Power 4 conference, that is a great season. It just so happened to be that the two losses they suffered, especially the one in Provo, just set them back. And so as a result, and I think the big thing here too, Spence, is the Big 12 was good with three teams this year: Utah, BYU, and Texas Tech. The rest, not so good. And the reason I think Utah is not going to be in the college football playoff is they don't have a sexy win against anybody down the stretch. They just don't. They after they lost the BYU game, they've won 5 straight, but guess what? None of those teams are ranked. Cincinnati was ranked at the time. They were a paper tiger or a paper bearcat. They have fallen off the wayside. Kansas State, not good. Baylor, not good. Colorado, not good. And as a result, despite the fact Utah's won mostly impressively, it's not been sexy enough where you look at these teams like Vanderbilt and some others that have impressive wins down the stretch. I don't know if Utah is better than Vandy or not. I don't know if Utah is better than Miami. Or these are all 10-2 teams we're talking about. But the problem is we're in the resume comparison game here, and the Big 12 was competitive this year, but there weren't a lot of ranked teams. And at the end of the year, there's going to be 3 ranked teams. Utah's going to be one of them, and the 2 teams they lost to are the others. There's just not a real resume-building win on that Utah resume versus a Miami, versus a Vanderbilt and some of these other teams. And so as a result, in another year, if you'd have beaten a ranked team down the stretch, it might have been enough to get you in that conversation. But what did you just say? There's 18 10-2 teams?
18 teams won 10 games this year, to a quick count I just did, yeah.
And I would say probably 12 or 10 or whatever of those might be 10-2 right now. So as a result, you're in that resume game. Utah might be as good as most of those 10-2 teams. But the problem is we're in the resume comparison game, and it's a 12-team playoff. And as a result, I think they're just going to be just on the outside looking in with this thing.
All right, I know you got to run.
But that takes nothing away from a great 10-2 season.
100%. I know you got to run, so I'll set you loose on this. I don't know much about Cal. I did see some highlights the other night when they beat UCLA, a top 16 team. Of course, tonight, Utah will take on Cal. You'll be on the call. Give us a quick preview and the little progress report on the early returns for Alex Jensen.
They got a nice win. Kind of got lost on the holiday week last week, late the other night against Ole Miss down in Palm Springs. They're 6-2 right now. They're playing pretty good basketball. Cal's going to be another good test, another power team, an ACC team. Mark Madsen, Mad Dog, the old UVU coach, is doing a good job. Scottie Pippen's kid is a sophomore on this team. He's a nice player. Ironically enough, Stephon Marbury's son is on this team, too. Doesn't play very much. This will be a good test for Utah. It's the first real road game that's going to be in a hostile atmosphere because Palm Springs wasn't. But it's another good kind of marker on the way to see, where Utah is. I just talked to Alex a little while ago. He's anxious to see how his kids perform. But I think it should be a good game tonight. We'll tip it off about 8 o'clock.
All right, buddy. Thanks for the time. Have a great call and travel safe.
Thanks, Spence. Talk to you soon.
Bill O'Reilly, voice of the Utes, Utah Cal on the radio station tonight. So a little college basketball. Stay tuned for that. Just in case you missed it, Pete Thamel, about 20 minutes ago, is reporting that Kalani has begun to inform people that he intends to stay at the school. BYU is in the process of putting together a lucrative contract to keep him. Been one of the main targets at Penn State, which he informed of his decision today. Dude, where does Penn State go from here? That's the question, because, it was Andy Staples on Dan Patrick's show yesterday that said his understanding is Penn State is waiting for conference championship weekend because they want to hire a coach that's participating, namely Kalani. James Franklin's a good football coach, and he's now coaching your Vodtech Hokies. And I said when they fired him, I'm like, all right, well, who's available for that job? Now, Kalani apparently has told them no. Brian Hartline, like, you fired James Franklin, and who are you left to hire? Like, what does this mean for Penn State is the question.
I think more likely Jeff Brom, but Hartline's probably the other name, in Terry Smith. Those are the three. And this is always my question to college football fans, NFL fans, really a lot of sports fans, but it really feels strong in college sports that after like a half of football or 1 week or 2 weeks of football, it's fire the coach, fire the coordinator, fire everyone. And it's just not a really intelligent way to approach the game of football. It's just not how it works in this sport. Going undefeated is something that happens like once in 30 years sometimes. So, it's interesting to watch that, that dynamic at play. And the real question when you make the decision to move on from your head coach is, who do you replace him with? What is the timing of you firing your head coach? Who is available during that coaching carousel? Because if it's no one, or if another team that has a big name has an opening that can come take the guy that you wanted, you can be in a really bad spot. And if your timing is wrong and you have to kind of settle, your program's in the wrong spot for a long time now. And that it reflects on the AD. Always is going to reflect on the AD. So that's an interesting dynamic, and one we're now talking about here.
What a wild 24 hours. My goodness gracious. So it does look like it will culminate. Kalani's getting that cookie money. They talk about oil money at Texas Tech. BYU's getting that cookie money, getting that crumble money.
A little crumble, a little tech money. Mm-hmm. Of course, just like locals who are genuine, crazy, fanatical sports fans that you get everywhere, but I think especially here in Utah in a certain way. Yeah, it's part of the game. Texas Tech is there. BYU is there. And guess who's playing in the Big 12 championship in, 4 days?
Mm-hmm. The CEO of Crumble Cookie, going full Avengers, is the most on-brand BYU story that I've heard in a long, long time. But shout out to that guy who, again, answers the question for all of us. What would a cookie look like if it was a human? It is this gentleman who now has stepped in and saved the day. Shout out Crumble Cookies. All right, we'll catch a break. Max Brown played quarterback at the highest of levels in college football. He works for our friends at ESPN. Gordon Monson live in studio. Tim McMahon for some jazz and some NBA. And Dave Fox later on. Busy Tuesday show, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. The chaos of the last 72 hours looks like it is going to culminate with Kalani Sitake staying at BYU as the head coach of the Cougars. Our guy Kyle Bonagura tweets out, "That's how the cookie crumbles." Bravo, Kyle. As the CEO of Crumble Cookie, who, as I will continue to reference, in your head, I want you to ask yourself, what does the CEO of Crumble Cookie look like? Go look up our guy. Boom. It is Central Casting. So there you go. Conference championship weekend ahead. The penultimate college football playoff rankings released tonight. Great day to catch up with our buddy Max Brown with our friends at ESPN. Hello, Max. How are you? How are you, bud?
I'm good, Spence. How are you, man?
I'm well. I appreciate the time. So let's get your thoughts on what really has been a sizable story here locally, where at one point it looked like Kalani might get gone to head over to Penn State. But according to reports, it looks like he is going to stay, and they're preparing a contract extension. Just give me your thoughts on how this crazy news cycle went down.
It makes me happy that he's staying, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on Salt Lake, Utah radio, but I think it just feels like that's the perfect fit. And so often you see guys, chase for higher ceilings or greener pastures and whatnot, and you kind of forget, how good you had it at your current spot. And obviously that's, with Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, and then now 2 years later at Michigan State, it's like, man, should have stayed there, had a great thing. And then also this year, with guys like Clark Lee at Vanderbilt and Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, guys that, 3 months ago I would have thought, you know what, they might leave, and maybe 5 years ago they do leave. They decide to stay. And I think this generation of coaches is a little bit more in tune with quality of life and all that, which is obviously ironic with all the Lane Kiffin drama. It's its own deal. But happy for BYU, happy for Kalani, and I think it makes sense. But where does this leave Penn State? They feel like kind of the program that in this game of musical chairs for being a blue blood themselves, whoever they end up hiring, I think there's going to be an awkward temperament of, was this really your first choice? Are you really getting the majority of the fan base on board? That'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
That's exactly where I wanted to go next. I mean, look, I think James Franklin is a good coach, and I understand the knock on not winning the big one, and the numbers are the numbers. But I always say, like, if you're going to move on from your guy, you better have a contingency in place to make sure that you're not taking a step backwards. And there are reports that they spoke to a number of different candidates before landing on Kalani. And to your point, a lot of the candidates said, no, I'm good. Brian Hartline, like, I don't even know who's out there, Max, for them to land on. How do you think it ends?
Yeah, Brian Dable's an interesting name that keeps getting thrown out there. I've seen some of the Vegas odds saying Lincoln Riley. That was about 48 hours ago, so I don't know how up-to-date that is. But, yeah, anytime you're seeing Vegas odds literally all over the map with the type of candidate, it shows you the lack of direction that you just alluded to. So, yeah, it'll be fascinating. I think, if you're Penn State, I think, I don't know if we talked about this, but back in January, you could see the writing on the wall in terms of this was going to be a coaching bloodbath in November and December. And the reason you could see that is because it was so aggressive December 2023 with the Kalen DeBoer, Nick Saban, that offseason. And then because there was so much movement that year, last December was very quiet, relatively speaking. I believe there were only 6 openings in Power 4 when it was all said and done. But then my point is, this cycle, you could just see that a lot of programs were coming to a head. And just by simple market dynamics, if there's a lot of jobs open and a lot of exciting spots, someone inevitably is going to get left out. And it could have been Florida. It could have been Auburn. It could have been Penn State. It looks like it's going to be Penn State in terms of like winning the press conference, which, as we all know, that's not what really matters. But in terms of winning over your fan base in this, next 1, 2, 3 months, I think Penn State's they're going to manufacture something with whoever they get in terms of, oh, we're so excited. But I think when we look back in, 90 days from now, Penn State will be the program with probably the least amount of buzz, unless they're rekindling right now and being like, hey, we got to go really get a splash, and they go the John Gruden route or someone totally out of left field. Maybe that's, what pressurizes here over the next 24, 48 hours, but that's obviously not in a decision-making process that you want to be in.
So you referenced the Lane Kiffin story. Of course, that was the biggest story on a national college football landscape. And look, I don't know the man. I've never interviewed him. It's wild that he seems to have all of these messy exits dating back to like the Raiders back in 2008 when Al Davis was like, he conned me. And every time he leaves, it feels like he leaves a wake of a burning city behind him. You know, Max, you know the deal with conversations like this. People want to blame Lane. They want to blame Ole Miss. They want to blame LSU. They want to blame the college football calendar. I just wonder, from your vantage point as somebody who played quarterback at the highest of levels in college football and covers it the way you do, just your thoughts on how it all went down and whether or not there is an area, a person, or a dynamic that is to blame for what has left a team behind that's going to the CFP without their head coach, which to me is the wildest part.
Yeah, no doubt. I certainly think, like I think most people, that the structure that college football is in with the calendar is the main reason to blame, certainly more than Lane Kiffin himself. Like, the reality is, if this had a true offseason like NFL, a lot of this drama, we're not sitting in this place. And you know, it reminds me a little bit of Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma for USC, where you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, in terms of like he has to leave when he has to leave to set up the recruiting class and the portal and all that. Obviously, Lane is in a much more difficult position given that his team's in a college football playoff pursuit. But calendar is an issue. I think for me, though, I have more empathy for Lane than probably most people because, like I said, he was in a difficult spot regardless, right? If he would have let Ole Miss know of his intentions to leave 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, well, then at that point, they probably ask him to stop coaching then, and then the narrative's going to be maybe they lose in the Egg Bowl, or they don't finish the season strong, and it's going to be, oh, he missed an opportunity at the greatest regular season in Ole Miss history. And so instead, understandably so, as AD puts an ultimatum on him, and he's forced to make a decision. I get why he wants to coach. I get why Ole Miss doesn't want him there. But to me, I mean, I don't know how – I actually believe him when he says, like, I don't know how else he could have done it better, because if he was more transparent, it probably would have hurt his team later on in November. So the system's a mess, and I think we'll look back 5-10 years down the road, and we'll either say – one of two things. The Lane Kiffin event was something that changed the college football calendar and was like the reason that systems got in place to try to bring all these programs on board to make a change. Or Lane Kiffin was the first of many head coaches, or a few head coaches, that have to go through this, because next year we could be sitting in a very similar spot where a head coach leads an overperforming program, and the next blue blood wants to poach him, and he's stuck between a rock and a hard place of, if I stay with my team, well, then I hurt my new program's chances next year, and if I leave my current program to set up if I leave my old program to set up my new program next year, well, then I'm going to get backlash either way you slice it.
What would you like to see put in place so this sort of dynamic is done away with? Because it's difficult, because you have labor laws that would be enforced. You could never, in the pros, NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball, force a coach to coach through the end of the season. You can never do that, okay? So when it comes to what college football has in place, I don't know how you accomplish it. It just feels so unfair. BYU's playing in the Big 12 championship on Saturday. It's probably the biggest football game BYU's had in 40-plus years. Ole Miss is going to the CFP. Now, BYU gets to keep their coach. Ole Miss loses theirs, and there's some other coaches that are taking jobs that have been allowed to coach through the end of their year. But would you like to see some sort of, I don't even know what it is, like rule put in place? Like, if you're coaching in the college football playoff, you are not allowed to engage with another school. I don't know how you do it, but is there something you'd like to see put in place so we avoid these dynamics?
The one out-of-the-box idea that I have that I haven't heard other people talk about it, I can just talk from my own experience. So I transferred from USC to Pitt before the portal, but the year before the portal became a thing in 2017. And I had to leave USC before the Rose Bowl appearance. And I left USC, the team. I was a captain on the team, and I left the team in early December to figure out where my next step was. And I had to do that because I wanted to be in a program to compete in spring ball, and I had to be enrolled at what ended up being Pitt on January 3rd. Rose Bowl's on January 1st. Like, that timeline, it sucked for me at the time. I felt like I needed to leave the team, but like that structure didn't work out. to answer your question directly, if there was a January grace period that all Division I Power schools agreed to, and I know some schools are more academically inclined than others, but the reality is we've all been to college. Those first week, 2 weeks is just kind of syllabus week, and it's not that intense anyways. If you just got everyone on board, and I'm not saying this would happen with a snap of the fingers, but in the grand scheme of like solvable issues, if you had an academic grace period in the month of January that allowed student athletes to enroll in, say, January 20th to their new school rather than January 3rd and make up that work. And if they don't make up the work and they fail and they're ineligible, that's on them. But allow them to make up that work, because so much would be solved if you just were able to have kids enroll January 15th, January 25th, and it didn't have to be January 2nd. And then that 2 weeks or 3 weeks would allow the college football season to finish. You could maybe even move up the national title and just give yourself more leeway. And I'm worried that conversation's a lot easier at, Texas Tech than it is Stanford. But in the grand scheme of things that feel like solvable, if you want to compete at the highest level of college football, when all these kids are getting paid thousands and thousands of dollars in life-changing money, that feels like something you could rally programs to adjust their curriculum, even if that means you have to go through university presidents to make it happen.
Let me go back to Lane Kiffin for a moment. First of all, I wonder if you know him at all. I mean, he was at SC. I'm not sure if you had any interactions with him. And then the attendant to that question is, do you believe that he is as good of a coach as most people seem to believe? Like, and it's interesting because I know he has this reputation as a great play caller, and there are a lot of people that believe that he's overrated in that dynamic. Yet every time he leaves, again, town is ready to burn it down, whether it's Tennessee after a 7-6 season or what we just saw at Ole Miss. So what makes him tick in your estimation, just as a person, and what kind of coach do you think he is?
Yeah, I mean, I played for him for a year. I was the third string, but I was, signaling in his plays at USC. He was the head coach that I signed under in that 2013 season, and then obviously that was the whole Tarmac incident, and I was on the plane. I didn't really realize what was going on, but I was technically there firsthand. And your point's certainly spot on in terms of you look at his previous stops. It always ends in a rocky ending, to say the least. The most impressive trait to me about Lane Kiffin is how innovative and adaptive he is. And the two biggest examples that I can point to is when I played for Lane Kiffin and signed under him, his calling card, not just one factor, his calling card was that he was basically the golden boy that was going to carry pro-style football into the new age. Learned under Norm Chow. That was his bread and butter. In a world where everyone was going Chip Kelly's route, Kiffin was like the pro-style guy. And he got, 3 years into that, or a couple of years after USC, and he's told me this personally. I called an Ole Miss game last year. He said he coached Blake Sims, and he's like, I gotta innovate. That my offense is going to get outdated, and he totally went 180 with his offensive philosophy. I don't think that gets enough. That gets talked about enough with Lane Kiffin, but not a lot of coordinators do that. Most coordinators, the DNA they have at 30 is the same DNA they have at 50. That is not the case whatsoever with Lane Kiffin. That's impressive. And then in the portal, that's the second big example of, in a world where, and Spence, you've talked to coaches and, I'm sure, media members, obviously over the past 5 years and whatnot, there was so much pushback to the portal. And Kiffin, better than anyone, said, you can complain about the rules all you want, but I'm going to go rally my booster base. And he didn't even waste a season. So many programs, it's taken them 2-3 years to catch up. I mean, I live in the USC world a little bit. Took USC like 3 seasons to finally wake up to, NIL's non-negotiable. He was able to convince his donor base in one off season, and Ole Miss built a foundation on that, and they've become like the portal team in a world where so many other programs were pushing back on that. And so his innovative mentality, he's never going to be a great, rah-rah speech head coach. He's never going to be an elite motivator, but I think his ability to embrace and be adaptive and the social media thing, I think that strikes a chord with the younger generation. He deserves a lot of credit for those moves that he's made throughout his college or his coaching career.
All right, let's go back to BYU just for a minute because, there's a game on Saturday that not a lot of people have been talking about. And look, it feels, Max, like they're going to have to win to get in. And we'll see what the penultimate CFP rankings say tonight. Look, there's a resume argument for BYU. I understand why some of their fans are a little bit upset, but they've played a lot of close games against really bad teams. Their only loss is to Tech. It was on the road. They actually held them to 29 points. Their red zone defense was really good. Kalani is staying, so that distraction is removed. Maybe there's a little bit of win one for the Gipper motivation because their coach is now going to ride with them. The line, I think, is 13. Texas Tech's really good. What do you think we're going to see in the Big 12 championship game coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm here for the chaos. I'd love nothing more than to, BYU either win this thing or if they win, they're in. But even if they keep it close, that to me is the most intriguing factor of, hey, if Texas Tech, we're saying, is a top 4 team in the country and on a path to having a first-round bye, and BYU takes it deep into the late fourth quarter, that certainly helps BYU's resume. And I'm here for that. And I've watched enough BYU football over the years, and the whole adage of it's hard to beat a team twice, and BYU goes in there with a nothing to lose type of mentality. Do they learn from the first matchup kind of thing? I'd expect this thing to be close. I'd expect this to be a 4-quarter game. I think Texas Tech is just a better team across the board, and so they end up winning. But the physicality of BYU keeps it close, and I think come whatever it is, Saturday night, Sunday night, I think BYU at least has an argument for why they should be in. And the whole conversation of did we hurt our chances of playing in the college football or in a conference title game come rise up, which I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about in terms of, if this was a SEC or a Big Ten game and one of the other teams was going to get punished, that would be the biggest storyline. But I think BYU keeps it close, but I got Tech winning it.
If BYU keeps it close, and you kind of alluded to the potential of them maybe getting in, let's say Tech, kicks a field goal with 30 seconds left to win it, or Barrett Morton leads them on a drive with a minute and a half left to win it. Is that enough? 2 losses to a team that most people believe is top 4 or 5. Is that enough for BYU to crack that CFP?
I do not know, and I am so glad I am not a committee member in that situation. I mean, where my head goes right away with that question is then that puts the committee on the most difficult decision to me right now for the committee is the Miami-Notre Dame situation with the head-to-head matchup, yet Notre Dame on paper looking like a better team, yet again you have the Miami head-to-head. And if you put BYU in, you are leaving one of those teams out for sure. Would the committee do that? I don't think they would when push comes to shove. So when push comes to shove, I think BYU becomes a even more heated conversation if they keep it close. But at the end of the day, I think BYU has to win to get in, and this will be really the first year. And I know BYU fans and Utah fans don't want to hear this, but this could be the first year where we see a true result or a true result in the Power 2, which again I know these fans probably hate that, but the Big Ten SEC and being in the ACC or the Big 12 and being kind of right on that fence, potentially helping Notre Dame, who I know is independent, but then obviously working against BYU in that situation.
All right, before I say you lose, just a Utah football question for you. 14 P4 teams won 10 games this year, right? And so 10-2, 7-2 in conference, that's an awesome year. It just is by any metric. You lose to your rival, BYU. Obviously, you lose to Tech, so you're not going to go to the conference championship game, and you're not going to go to the CFP. It looks like it's the Vegas Bowl, maybe against Iowa. But again, maybe it's a testament to what Witt has done to all of us. 10-2 is an awesome year. 7-2 in conference play. So give me your thoughts on the year that's now behind us with the Utes.
Yeah, 2 things. One, I mean, what ability to respond after last year. And, yeah, Utah might be the most kind of slept-on team of all the teams in the top 20. I mean, to be sitting here right now at 13, and it might even get better before the end of the season. Tons of praise there. And then from afar, and I'd be curious where you're at and the Utah faithful are at, but I feel like every week I see some sort of Kyle Whittingham retirement, is he gone type of tweet. And as someone who covered him much more closely when I was with the Pac-12, like if this is the end, which again, maybe I'm missing a detail, like what a way to go out. And I'd be happy for him. And he's led one of the best programs literally of this century, top to bottom, in terms of consistency.
You just answered my final question because I do think this is it. The deadline is Friday, Max, and I do think we're going to hear that Witt is stepping away and Morgan's going to slide over one seat. So I, for the first time in, 5-6 years since this story became legit, this is the first time I feel confident saying into a microphone, I think this is it for him.
And end of an era. I mean, from a national perspective, I think about Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, Kyle Whittingham at Utah, and Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. And Gundy obviously not on his own terms. End of an era for him there. If that's the case with Whittingham, end of an era. I don't know where Kirk Ferentz is at, but I know sometimes he gets bucketed into this conversation, and I just think it speaks to truly how college football is, in a new frontier in some regard, and some of the old guards that have been consistent for over 2 decades are exiting stage left. And Kyle Whittingham, like I said, one of the most accomplished, respected coaches. As a former player, you always knew what you were getting into playing a Kyle Whittingham team, and he's done it at the highest level.
Well said, Max. Thanks for the time, my friend. Have a great week, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks, Spence. Appreciate you. Max
Brown, quarterback at USC. Pitt, now with our friends at ESPN, calling ACC games. Always appreciate Max's time. At Max Brown 4 is where you find him. Gordon Monson is going to join us live in studio. But let's talk water. Gentlemen, Culligan Water. It's great to have Kent and Colson back in studio. How you doing, guys?
We're doing great. How are you?
I'm good. You good?
Absolutely.
Now, you're a big Ute football fan.
Yeah, we both are.
You both are. So I want to ask you, from your fan perspective, what do we owe Witt? I think he's walking away. As he walks away, what do we owe him as a football community?
A lot of thanks.
A lot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. An incredible amount. I mean, the consistency. I mean, you talk about the sellouts at Rice Eccles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not happening without Witt.
Yeah, he changed the entire thing. Nothing official, listeners, so everyone calm down. I just think that's what we're going to hear. All right, Culligan Water. Let's start here. I've become a huge believer in simply hydration over the past 5-6 years. I just read some things that changed the way I looked at it. It's not just drinking water. It's drinking the right type of water. What sort of health benefits do you see with people that are properly hydrated when they're drinking the right type of water?
Yeah, I mean, the football team looked pretty hydrated out there, don't they?
Yeah, they did.
They're making really good decisions, especially that quarterback, Devin.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really high-quality H2O hydrating that guy's body, man. So, I mean, water impacts everything, right? From your cognitive abilities to your physical abilities, your mood, your digestion, and everything in between. So it's critically important to drink not only water, but the right type of water, and water that you want to drink, right? Water that's free of impurities, water that's free of chlorine, water that's free of all that nasty stuff that isn't water that can kind of find its way into, your municipal water system. And that's where Culligan comes in. We have products that are built to remove impurities from water. Your body isn't made to remove impurities. It's just not, right? That's why we do it at the source, and we've done it for longer than anybody. We know Utah water better than anybody around, and we hope to be able to provide a solution for your listeners as well.
And it's not just water that you drink. I mean, we use water to wash dishes. We use water to wash clothes. And I lived with my grandparents my first couple of years at the U, and one of my chores was bringing the salt in to make sure our water was soft. That was 30 years ago. But
yeah.
It's changed a little bit. Another offer you guys have is water softening that affects our washing the clothes and washing the dishes, which is also important.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the beneficial things about becoming a part of the Culligan family is the integration of all of the water treatment products that we can provide, either to your business, but also what we're talking about today with your home. We provide a whole home solution that will soften your water. It will also dechlorinate your water, so the whole home is being filtered and getting all that chlorine out of there. Plus, we can provide you with the right drinking water system that your family needs and wants. So if you give us a call, we can come out to your home, we can test your water, we can show you what's in your water, and then provide great savings. We're kind of extending our Black Friday special to your listeners today, Spence, if they call in and book an appointment, 801-509-9602, we can give them $500 off any of our smart products. So say they already have a softener, but they're looking for a drinking water solution. We can give you $500 off or vice versa. But if they bundle all of 3 of those products together, they can save the $1,500 off. Plus, we'll give you a free installation. So it's like a $2,000 value.
That's huge. I did not know you were offering that today. It's an extension of the Black Friday sale. We have a Culligan water set up in studio, and you can taste the difference. So if you have a family, get your children hydrated, help kind of their development. The energy level goes through the roof. You sleep better. Your workouts are better. And the Black Friday sale has been extended. It's a free consultation. It's $500 off any of their smart products. If you bundle all 3, you save $1,500 and free installation, which is wild. However, you have to call today. Here's the number, 801-509-9602, 801-509-9602, 801-509-9602, or online at CulliganSLC.com. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Thank you.
Well. Thank
Catch a break. Gordon Monson live in the studio. Coming up on ESPN 700. All right, the breaking news from Pete Thamel about 45 minutes ago is that Kalani Sitake is staying put. We don't have any official numbers, no official word on what the contract extension looks like, but after being courted by Penn State, Kalani decides to stay. Our next guest wrote a great piece, which I read earlier today because I read everything he writes. He is my former radio partner, Gordon Monson, on a Tuesday afternoon. Gordo, how are you, pal?
I'm fantastic, Spence. How are you?
So let's start here. Are you surprised, and we'll have to wait to see what the final numbers look like, but if the reports are true, it means BYU, maybe for the first time in the history of their football program, is paying their head coach fair market value for who he is. Are you surprised that BYU stepped up?
I'm not. Nothing really surprises me anymore. Well, I'm surprised sometimes, but not really shocked. It's about time. I mean, you got to pay these guys. Kevin Young comes in there and he's getting his $5 million or whatever it is for basketball, and basketball obviously isn't as important as football. You got to pay. You got to pay your guy. Either you're going to get in the game or you're not. And with what BYU is doing with NIL and increased emphasis, how can you not pay your head coach what he deserves? And that's what Kalani is getting here. When you win 22 or 25 games at BYU, I mean, what makes anybody think that guy isn't worth market value? Mm-hmm. You got to pay it. Yeah. You have to. Yeah. Or else give it up. Because you can go on a bump and skid along at some lower level if you want to make it a church calling and not really pay your guys or pay your assistants, and then you'll be where you deserve to be. But in this day and age, if you pay the guys, you got to pay the right guys. Mm-hmm. Pay the guys and get them in comfortable and get them feeling as though they are valued and that they have the support necessary. And then that's. That's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens. Okay, indeed. Quoting a little Austin Collie on the show today. Ultimately, I would not have been surprised just based off of historical precedent of the way BYU conducts business. Let's just say Penn State came to the table with 11 mil per, right? Lane gets 13. A lot of similarities between these two situations, ironically enough. But let's say Penn State said, all right, Kalani, 6-7 year deal, start you at 11, boom, we'll go from there. Part of me believed BYU would say, okay, good luck. Go get your 11. We'll pay Jay 4. Yeah. And we'll save our 7 mil, and we think we can ride with him. I actually thought that would have been on the table.
Well, okay. Let's start with point A, and that is Jay Hill's a hell of a football
For sure
coach.
He is, yeah.
This guy's going to be a head coach somewhere.
Yeah.
And he is so good. But when you have the momentum going the way the program is going right now, if you punt on Kalani Sitake, then what happens to the recruits? What happens to – I was told that Ryder Lyons would be gone, and others as well. Yeah. So, you got it going on. Provide the resources necessary to keep it going that way. And that's what they did. I'm not sure how much the Mormon Church gets involved in this stuff, but obviously the resources are there to pay these guys what they should be paid, and that's what happened with BYU. Kalani, 3 years ago, remember he was like on the top 5 list for those who were on the hot seat, and I'll be daggone if he didn't turn that thing around. You don't that just doesn't happen. He made it happen, and so you give credit to the guy. I know these guys make ridiculous money. It seems silly in some ways, but they are the key to keep the success going, and so you have to pay them. BYU really didn't have a choice; they had to step up, or they were going to step back. And I think Jay Hill would have done a terrific job. I think he's Kalani's equal as far as being a great coach. But okay, now you've lost Kalani, so now you just have Jay Hill there. Now, they may lose Jay Hill at some point, if you're going to keep Kalani. I was told that one of the sticking points was the length of the contract.
Okay.
But I guess they found a way to get him what he wanted. Kalani has felt somewhat undervalued, and he should have. He wasn't getting paid the way he should have. I think he looked around and said, hey, man, look what I'm doing over here. Pay attention. We're BYU. We're BYU football. We fill that stadium over there. We make you a ton of money. We are good for the organization. You got the money. bring it this way, and they did.
Yeah, it's not a matter whether or not the money is there. And I know we have to preface all these conversations so people don't get their feel-goods hurt by saying we know it's not your tithing and we know the church isn't stepping in. First of all, they could, and they would be within their rights to do so. But we understand that whether it is money that you have as a result of the revenue generated from your athletic department or the crumble CEO, if there's
Cookie Monster.
If there really was an on-brand BYU story, it's the fact that the crumble CEO may have saved the day. By the way, if you've ever wanted to know the answer of what a human being looks like if it was a cookie, it is the CEO of Crumble. My man looks like a sugar cookie, but he saves the day. And wherever you get the funds, it doesn't matter. This was never about money. It was about BYU willing to modernize its approach if you want to hold on to your coach.
And you got to pay the assistants. You got to give whatever support is necessary to be a great football program. Now, one of the interesting aspects of this, Spence, is the fact that what's going to happen with BYU, if they don't win on Saturday, they're going to be relegated to second-tier status. And Penn State wouldn't be that way.
For sure.
I'm sure you've talked about this, but if he was 11-1 at Penn State, he'd automatically be in.
You might have a bye.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if he won the championship, then obviously it's there. And so, I mean, that has to go through any football coach worth his salt. Is what can I do? Everybody wants to be at the top of their profession, right? Football coaches are so freaking competitive. And Kalani fits into that category. He wants BYU to be at the top. So what's necessary for them to do that? You're already fighting attitudes. You're fighting biases. You're fighting a P2 attitude. And Kalani wants to push this thing forward and make it happen. But he needs what's necessary to get it done. And it seems to me like BYU is coming around. And they've already been making progress. But keeping Kalani Sitake under this scenario, I think, Spence, that elevates the program even higher.
I think it does. But you bring up a really important point, and that is, can you achieve at BYU what you could achieve at Penn State? And ultimately, I'm not a conference shill. I never have been. I do miss the Pac-12, mostly because of the footprint, the markets that the Big 12 has, that the Pac-12, I just prefer the footprint of the Pac-12. But my hope is that, whenever college football changes again, whenever the next shift happens, both BYU and Utah are included in the Big 10, SEC, whatever that hybrid's going to look like. Because what the committee continues to tell us is they think the Big 12 is a one-bid league. And if BYU doesn't win Saturday, they're probably out. And I just wondered if there was part of Kalani that said to himself, I want to see if my concepts work at the highest level. Because to your point, if you go to Penn State and you're 11-1, you're automatically in the CFP. You're probably hosting a game, and you might have a bye. And if you do that at Penn State, people talk about you the way they talk about Ryan Day or Dan Lanning or Kirby Smart. And if you continue to build this up at BYU, I don't know that you would ever be able to reach the heights that you could reach at a program like Penn State. Part of me wondered if Kalani would want to prove it at that level, right?
I think there's a part of him that did. However, there's also this affection he has for BYU. Obviously, his alma mater. His family loves it there. They love the school. He loves the school. And so maybe there's a little bit of A.J. DePonce in Kalani, and he thinks, I want to do it here, and I want to prove that I can do it here. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to go to a blue blood to make it happen. I don't know whether I haven't had that conversation with him, but I know he feels deeply for BYU. It would take something extra special to get him out of there, even though he has felt disrespected at times in his very home, And so it sounds to me like BYU is rectifying that. And if they do, maybe they can push BYU forward so that they can let's say it the way it is. If they beat Texas Tech on Saturday, then guess what? They're in the playoff. Mm-hmm. That's a big task. Texas Tech is really, really
good.
Are. Yeah. That defense, fantastic. But in a way, Kalani played this perfectly because BYU has the biggest game in recent memory. Can you think of a game that was bigger than this one?
It's since 84. It's Holiday Bowl 1984.
And so you got this game sitting there on Saturday, and all of a sudden the story emerges that, hey, man, there are powerful programs out there that want your guy, mm-hmm. and you gotta do something.
Yeah.
And you got to do it quick. You got the signing day. You got this big game coming up. Kalani had him by the cojones.
Yeah.
He did. And they had to, if they were going to move on it, they had to move on it quickly. And it sounds like that's what happened.
Yeah, and, the Brian Santiago angle to this is interesting. There have been several reports that Kalani's relationship with Brian isn't what it was with Tom, which is natural because Tom hired Kalani, and Tom was the one that early on, and to your point, 4 or 5 years ago, there were a lot of noise, like, is this really the guy? Mm-hmm. Tom rolled with him. We're riding with you, Kalani. So I'm sure Kalani has affinity for Tom in a way that maybe he just doesn't have with Brian because the relationship is new. And you hear all these conversations about the Brian Santiago hire being steeped in Brian's relationships with rich BYU boosters and alum, right? He golfs with Danny Ainge, Riverside Country Club. He golfs with Ryan Smith. He knows those people. But there was kind of this side storyline when Brian was hired of how many people have had like icy interactions with him. And if you're not a Riverside Country Club guy or a tech bro or shout out Cookie Bro, like, he has no time for you. I can't speak to that personally, but that was kind of the storyline around his hiring. And if the first challenge he faced, he let Kalani go, the noise around Brian Santiago would be pretty interesting. I actually think this is a big moment for him as well.
The noise was there before for all the reasons you just specified. Brian has some stuff to learn still. I mean, he does. And I think that Kalani, that's one of the things. He was looking over at Kevin Young and going, if Kevin wants something, he gets it. How about a little of that same magic for me over here on the football side?
For sure.
And that was part of the thing. Brian he's a basketball guy. And so, hey, you better become a football guy, and you better do it in a hurry. I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, you got to figure out how to work people. You got to figure out you got to understand the game, the way it works in the modern world. Brian's a smart guy. You'd think he'd be able to figure that out. Mm-hmm. He has to.
Yeah.
And if this is the move that happens, then maybe it's a step in that direction.
Yeah. So I do think it's a good day for Brian as well. All right, moving over to the other side. For the first time, Gordon, I feel very confident. I believe the deadline is on Friday. I think the deadline for Kyle is Friday, and I think this is it. I think Kyle is going to announce, and he could announce any minute, or he could wait until Friday, that he is stepping away and is retiring as the head coach of Utah football. 14 P4 teams won 10 games this year. Like, it's pretty wild, and a lot of it's lost in BYU 11-1, going to the Big 12 championship game. Utah football just had an awesome year.
Yes, it did.
And no one's talking about it because there's not going to be a lot to show for it outside of maybe Vegas Bowl against Iowa. So, first of all, do you feel like that is the news we're going to hear? And what are your thoughts as Kyle potentially is going to walk away?
Well, I've talked to Kyle about this on numerous occasions, and there have been times where I really didn't think he knew what he was going to do. He was going back and forth on this stuff. And quite frankly, I think his family wants him to keep going.
Oh, really?
They enjoy that Kyle's the head coach of the University of Utah football program. And I think they like that. On the other hand, they like having him around, too. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things where I don't think Kyle can lose on this one. He's just got to make a decision, and he's going to enjoy whatever he decides. But I have never heard him talk publicly about the possibility of retirement the way he has over the last week or two. And that indicates to me that something is really different this time. If I had to guess right now, I would guess that he is going to hang it up. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's based on a lot of things. It goes back to his dad, and he always said he didn't want to coach into his old age. And his dad passed away at 64. Kyle is 66. He understands that the clock is ticking, even though it seems to me like Kyle's in great health. I mean, he looks 25 years younger than he is. Mm-hmm. But I think he understands that there's a whole lot of things that he could be doing that are important to him that make life really rich. And I'm not talking about money. Although if you want to talk about money, he'd be giving up a lot, but he already has a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's invested in real estate in Hawaii and all these different. He's got money. Yeah, money's not the issue for him. Yeah. So anyway, I think he's going to go.
Yeah, and a few things to your point. Final home game, K-State, his presser when he got emotional.
Yeah.
And remember, the sentence that got him was this, because he was talking about his seniors. But when he was talking about his seniors, it didn't get him. Then he said their final opportunity at Rice-Eccles. Then he got emotional.
That's right.
That was the sentence that got him. And then he's like, oh, I always get emotional talking about my seniors. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
I've been covering this thing for 20 years. Like, liar. No, you don't. It was the statement, final opportunity at Rice-Eccles, that sent him.
Yeah.
So that was number one. After the Kansas win, it was the first time he basically said he was going to go last year. But when it went sideways, he didn't feel like he could leave it behind in a tough spot. And like I said, awesome year. Yeah, you lose to your rival. You're not going to win a conference championship. 85% of college football programs would take 10-2 and 7-2 in conference play.
Yeah, and I think he was really proud of that, and he should be. I mean, and then afterward, he says the University of Utah football program is heading in the right direction. So he's essentially ushering in this new thing. And you got Morgan Scally over there waiting like, hey, how about while we're young? And I think everything is conspiring in a direction where this would be a terrific time for him to do it. Utah's a hell of a football program, and that team is good. And they brought that back from what happened a year ago, and Kyle has a lot to be proud of. And, you know, sometimes you don't necessarily get to the college football playoff, but, you know, if Utah were in the college football playoff, well, let me edit that. If they got their run defense figured out,
Oof,
I think that they would really be formidable for a whole lot of teams. And if they did get their defense straightened out, which ironically enough is Morgan Scally's charge, then I think they could have some success amongst the best teams in the country, because I think they are.
They finished 14th in the Big 12 in rush defense, yards per game allowed.
Unbelievable.
Now, a lot of that was inflated because the final three were so bad.
Yeah.
But the numbers are the numbers. 14th in rush defense for Utah They were second in pass defense because they could get to the quarterback. They had a solid defensive backfield, even with the injuries. 14th in rush defense doesn't even compute if you're a Utah football fan. It's weird.
And it's even worse watching it because, I mean, there were gaping holes. And these guys, that Kansas State game, I don't, that was the worst run defense, I think, in Utah history.
Yeah, it was bad.
And for Kyle Whittingham to be coaching a team that succumbs to that in that manner, although they did come back and win. But it was otherworldly. It was just weird.
Now, as Morgan slides over a seat, there's a seat that's open, and that's the defensive coordinator. Do you call the defensive coordinator that's about 40 miles down south and say, hey, Jay, you want to come home a little bit? And do you think Jay even entertains that option?
Well, again, you're talking about BYU money.
Mm-hmm.
And I have talked to numerous boosters down there who say they're swimming in it.
Sure.
And good luck prying him away. I don't think Utah can afford it. I don't think Utah has as much money as BYU does. And if BYU understands that Jay Hill might be a short-timer because he's going to take over a program sometime as the head guy, and he's told me straight to my face that is his intention. Mm-hmm. That's what he wants. As much attention as he's getting as BYU's defensive coordinator, he's had the taste of being a head coach. That's what he wants again. I don't think Utah can outbid BYU.
So you just said something that I hadn't really considered as far as Kyle's family wanting him to coach, because it's cool if your dad is the head coach of Utah football. Because I can remember when my dad left the Garden and he called, he was like, yeah, I'm walking away from Madison Square Garden.
Did that prick you a little bit?
All of us were kind of like, well, wait a second. Then what are you going to do? Like, who are you? Like, you kind of become accustomed to that being like a cool thing. You get to go to games, you get tickets, and people, it is an interesting thing for the family to adjust, a lifestyle change. And Kyle's been there 21 years as the head coach. I mean, how long is a coach? Over 30. When dad and grandpa's no longer that guy, it's kind of an interesting family adjustment.
It's almost like a drug, isn't it? A little bit,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It does feel good to be important.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle's important. When I think of personalities in the state of Utah, Kyle is right up there near the top, if not at the top. He's near the top as far as when you think of the state of Utah. You think of someone who represents the state of Utah well. Mm-hmm. Kyle Whittingham is one of the first names I think of.
Yeah.
And when you've built that kind of reputation, And there's a reason that the playoff committee has respected Utah the way it has. I mean, maybe now people think, oh, wait a minute, you got teams that jump, all this stuff. But I think that Kyle Whittingham's reputation around the college game is a very high level, and that's one of the reasons that when you have a team that's got won 10 games, you got to consider them. They may not be there because of the 2 losses, and they're not in the SEC or the Big Ten, but or Notre Dame. But there is tremendous respect for Utah football.
Before I set you loose, I wanted to, because we were discussing this earlier, there's something really interesting about our state and the coaches who coach here who end up staying here for a long, long time. And you and I both grew up elsewhere, and I'm always reminded, I went home for Thanksgiving, and on the way home, you know, my dad's like, what time's your flight leave? I'm like, 4. He's like, okay, we'll leave at noon. I'm like, wait, what? You know, and so you sit in traffic for hours. JFK, Van Wyck, everybody knows the deal if you've ever been back east. It's hard to live in a lot of places. It's easy to live here. Get to the airport in 15 minutes. There's no traffic. I know that you have to walk a little bit if you're in the B portal or whatever the hell people complain about. But whether it's Kyle or Kalani or Jerry Sloan or Lavelle, I could keep going. Like Jason Kreis and his wife moved and took an opportunity after being here about 9 years, but they could not wait to get back. What do you think it is about this place that seems to breed these coaches that stay here forever?
Life is good here. I mean, I almost said elevated, but I don't want to really get into it. It's a pretty great place. Mm-hmm. But it is. It's a good place. Spence, like you said, you and I have lived in different places. We've been around, and we live here because we want to. And there's a lot of people who want to. There's a reason the state is growing the way it is. There's a lot of people who want to live here. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Politics are a little weird sometimes, and it gets a little crazy. But, man, there are so many good things here. It's funny you bring up the airport in New York. I remember one time I was on a vacation with my family, and we had to get to JFK. And sure enough, Spence, you know what that's like?
The worst.
And we had to wait. We were stuck in traffic, and we were waiting and waiting. And I'm thinking, are we going to miss our freaking flight? I had 7 people with us. Are we going to miss our flight and have to redo all this? And we got to the airport late, and I turned to the gal who was running. It was a van because we had a rental car, and she had to get us to. I said to her, if I give you $40, can you get us to the terminal in inside of 10, 15 minutes? She said, sit down. She got us there.
That's
man.
A miracle.
Yeah, she was. I mean, I thought I was in the Indy 500, and she's driving this van, this rental car van. And I thought, this isn't the way it works in Salt Lake City. It's
no,
a
it's
more
not.
Convenient.
Last thing before I set you loose, the World Cup draws on Friday, as you know.
Yeah.
So as we sit here today, 39 of the 45 European teams have qualified. There are still 6 spots. It really looks like it's going to come down to Slovakia versus Kosovo for one. Who do you like and why?
Slovakia. Yeah. You know why?
Yeah.
Because I like offensive football.
Oh, okay.
And I like teams that are aggressive and that don't just sit back in that boring kind of waiting for the other team to make a mistake and then pounce on that. Yeah. No, I want to see ball possession.
Yeah.
I want to see the ball being moved with intention. And that's what Slovakia does. They possess the ball, they move it forward, and they score.
So of the 12 teams left, they're the second worst offensive team.
Well, on occasion, they do have periods of slumps. That does happen on occasion. But,
you're a legend, my friend. It's great to see you. Okay, we'll chat soon.
Thanks.
SLTrib.com. Gordon Monson, check out his stuff. All right, water is important. Hydration is important. We use water to wash clothes. We use water to wash dishes. You want your water soft. You want your water filtrated. You want pure water, and that's where our friends at Culligan Water come in. We got Kent and Colson live in studio. Once again, gentlemen, how we doing?
We're doing great, man. How are you?
I'm well, so I appreciate your time. So we're extending the Black Friday sale. Let's actually start there, and let's really dig into just how much money people can save.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about products for your home to take care of your home and your pets and your family members in your home. There's a whole home system that we can provide. It's a 3-part system. So it's going to give you a high-efficiency softener. It's going to give you a whole home filter, a carbon filter that will filter out all of the chlorine in your home. Plus, it'll give you a reverse osmosis drinking system for underneath your sink. If you want to buy any of those products on their own, we'll give you $500 off any of those smart products. But if you bundle them all together, we can also give you a free installation. So it'll save you about $2,000. So this is a pretty good deal, but you got to give us a call and book a free water test. So give us a call, 801-509-9602. Let us come out to your place, and we'll test your water and talk about these systems with you.
Let's talk about the consultation, because I think that's probably the most important step. Because I'm a big fan of hydration, filtered water, but I'm not educated on this stuff at all. So I think the first step is educating people. What does that consultation look like?
Oh, it is so educational. It's informative. It's demonstrative, right? So we can actually show you what's hiding in your water, right? We can test how hard it is. We can test what the TDS is, which stands for the total dissolved solids. And then we can show you what that looks like in real terms, right? How does that impact you? I mean, the water that's coming in, it looks clear, right? So therefore, you trust it. You think that it's pure. But in reality, there's a lot that can be lurking underneath the surface, and we can show you what that looks like and how it impacts yourself, your appliances, your health, your home's health, and everybody you love.
Finally, let's talk about benefits that you've seen. So let's just do a hypothetical. Somebody calls you, you do the consultation. You're like, hey, this is the water you're drinking. This is the water you're using to wash your clothes, which you wear. Breaking news. This is the water you use to wash your dishes, which you eat off of. That's my understanding of how dishes work. And then you install these systems, and then suddenly the water becomes purified. What sort of benefits can people expect?
So you can expect 50% longer lifespan of all water-using appliances. Think about that. That's your dishwasher. That's your laundry machine. That's your water heater. Have you ever, Spence, tried to remove an old water heater? You know
Impossible.
that it's 400 times heavier than a new one going in, and it's because of the sediment. It's because of that calcification that's built up inside the heater that makes that heating element go bad. And with a water softener, you prolong the lifespan of that system, and it's incredible the impact that just installing a simple water softener can have on your home and on your body.
Let's hit that Black Friday special one more time so people know exactly what we got.
Yeah, give us a call, 801-509-9602, and take advantage of $500 off any of our smart water treatment equipment. That's either a water softener, a reverse osmosis system, or a whole home filter. Bundle them all together, and you can save free installation.
Free installation plus $500 off each product. You're saving like $2,000. Okay, so it's a massive, massive deal. Improve the health of yourself and your family with our friends at Colligan Water, but you have to call today to take advantage of the deal. Phone number is 801-509-9602. That's 801-509-9602. 801-509-9602 or online at CulliganSLC.com. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll catch a break. We have 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Tim McMahon and Dave Fox, that's your 4 o'clock hour of the program. Don't forget, Utah men's basketball is in action tonight against Cal. That will come your way at 7:30. Lot to do. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Kind of an interesting scheduling quirk for the Utah Jazz. They saw the Rockets back-to-back. They got smoked a couple of days ago, bounced back with a nice win last night. Jazz 7-13 now. They hit the road for a couple of games back east against the Nets and the Knicks, our next guest. Well, Tim McMahon, is it fair to say that you still cover the Utah Jazz? Once upon a time, you were here all the time, but at this point, it feels like it's a little more sparse.
I cover the NBA. The Utah Jazz are part of the NBA. Certainly, I enjoy my time when I do get to make it to Utah. But you're right, it's not as frequent as it used to be. And I would say that's probably directly related to their spot in the NBA standings as of late.
No, that's fair to say. That's fair to say. Got to start with OKC because they're 20-1 and their net is 15.5 and they've won 12 straight. They'll see the Warriors tonight. You know, it was clear, certainly over the past couple of years, that they were evolving, they were climbing, and they've played a good portion of their season without their second-best player. Is there a sizable gap at this point between Oklahoma City and the rest of the West, and is there anybody you think that lives in their neighborhood?
There's a sizable gap between Oklahoma City and the rest of the league, for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, you said it. Dude, they broke the record for point differential last year, and they are obliterating that so far this season, and they've got an all-NBA player who's played 2 games. Honestly, they've been one of the more injured teams in the league all season long. Now, Shea's played every game. He's the reigning MVP. He's, I don't know if he's even better, but he's playing just as well as he did last year. And honestly, dude, they're defensively, they're the best defense in the league by like 6+ points per game. It is insane, the gap defensively between the Thunder and the rest of the league. I mean, Cason Wallace there's like a handful of players who have been all defensive team on the Thunder. Cason Wallace isn't one of them. He was just the West Defensive Player of the Month this announced today. So, yeah, I'm not saying they're unbeatable. Stuff happens. I mean, but it will be a pretty significant upset if anybody knocks these guys off in a series.
I asked you a couple of weeks ago, I think I asked McMiniman this as well, and I only say this through the prism of who Victor Wembanyama could eventually be, and obviously there's some health issues there as well. Just what stock would you buy for future return on investment, OKC or San Antonio? Is there anyone that is even in the conversation as far as really good right now with the ability to continue to add with Oklahoma City? Is there anybody that even exists with them?
I don't know that we've ever seen anything like this in the league. I mean, the fact that the Clippers are terrible and OKC owns their pick this year and a swap next year is pretty unprecedented stuff. And obviously, I'm sure you're tracking it on a daily basis. There's still a possibility the Thunder could deliver them a lottery pick. Now, it can't be better than 9. But, like OKC's problems are kind of come down to this. Are we going to have to let some of these really good players go at some point? And, man, we've got more first-round picks than we have room for. What are we going to do with these? And those are nice problems to have.
Yeah, they are. And we are tracking this on a day-to-day basis when it comes to where the Jazz find themselves. And ultimately, the issue with continuing to cover the Jazz is this year it's going to sound a lot like last year because of that asset that they just simply can't lose. Now, they're sitting at 7-13, and there are nights where to me, it looks like if Will decided to play his best players all the time, that they would be in the conversation potentially for, I don't know that I would say play-in, but maybe winning 30 to 35 games, which therefore would send that top 8 protected pick to Oklahoma City. I don't know that I'm going to have a lot of very interesting Jazz questions for you outside of some things that we don't see coming at all. But what I wanted to ask you today, is there anything at all, in your opinion, that could happen this year that would alter their approach to say, you know what? At some point, we got to give that away. We really like what we have. So, Will, go ahead. Try to win every single night. Is there anything that could happen that would make that go down?
Well, here's the problem, or I would say not a problem. Here's the good thing is it's not at some point they don't have to give it away. If they don't convey it this year, it's done. It goes into dust. So this is the last year you'll have that OKC pick hanging over the franchise, one way or another, whether they give it up or whether they keep it. I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I think it would be pretty ill-advised for them to position themselves where they'll end up with a ninth pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just from I'm just, we can talk about integrity of competition, blah, 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 but from an NBA common sense standpoint, that would be pretty surprising. With the Jazz, I think, look, we're going to have a question, I believe, going into early February as far as like how aggressive our team's going to be coming after Larry Markkinen, who's having an amazing year. I mean, putting up 28 points per game very efficiently. He can fit into any offense. There's already kind of some noise about, is Detroit going to make a play for him? Which that to me could get very interesting because Detroit has all their own picks. They do have some intriguing young players. Obviously you're not getting Cage, you're not getting Jalen Duren, you're not getting Asar Thompson, but they've got some intriguing young players. They got the money to make the trades work in terms of both flexibility and expiring salary. It's going to cost a lot to get Larry Markkinen. I don't know if anything's going to heat up for real, but that's an interesting possibility that I'm keeping my eye on, and I know people around the league are as well.
Yeah, I mean, your buddy Mark Stein is the latest to write that he's under the impression that there are conversations ongoing, and they're not going to say anything about, whether or not they'll do it. Obviously, that would be ridiculous, and no team would do that. But I just think it makes sense at this point. Now, I have changed my tune a little bit because ultimately I thought they may have missed the boat when they didn't trade him after he made the All-Star team, because then what they decided to do is really not play him very much, and his value may have gone down. But to your point, he has been awesome, and it's just a reminder of really how good he is. And quite frankly, Tim, I think how good he could be in most any system. As you referenced, it would take a king's ransom. But what teams, and whether maybe you've heard some things that would be great, but who would make sense? You referenced Detroit. Outside of Detroit, who out there is like a Lauri Markkinen away from throwing punches with some of the best teams in the league?
Well, and I don't even know if it's throwing punches with the best teams in the league, but I look at, being able to get out of out of the Eastern Conference. And Detroit's in a really interesting spot. If you're Trajan Langdon running the Pistons, you could sit here and look at this and say, hey, let's see how good this group we have right now is. They've only been in one playoff series. It's a young core. Jalen Duren is going to get paid. This group's going to naturally get significantly more expensive. Let's see what we have this year. Or you could say, you know what? We made the playoffs last year. We gave the Knicks a good fight in the first round. We're sitting here in first place in the Eastern Conference. And we are potentially Larry Markkinen away from being the clear-cut favorite in the East. Let's go for it. Let's do that right now. And Larry's not the only player I could plug into that sentence, but you know what I'm saying. And they've got all the flexibility and assets needed to be able to make a trade. So they're the most interesting. Atlanta's another one that I think is interesting. I think those are. It's funny. Chicago's come up as potentially an AD team. Larry going back to Chicago would be hilarious for a lot of reasons. I don't see that happening. Yeah. I don't see that being a fit. But yeah, Detroit and Atlanta to me are the two that really kind of stand out in terms of, potentially being aggressive and making sense for them to be aggressive. And then you also got to look at who actually has stuff that's necessary to be able to put a trade together. And look, I've heard Lowry and the Spurs over the years. I don't know that the Spurs are going to make that kind of aggressive, expensive move for the second straight season. As they're getting to a point soon where they're going to obviously have to put Victor on probably a Supermax contract.
Yeah, and they can absolutely afford to be patient. There's no reason to expedite that roster with how young their best players are. Give me a progress report on Cooper Flagg. Last time we spoke, we honed in mostly on the Nico stuff and whether or not AD is going to be moved. But, Cooper Flagg was a player a lot of people around here were just hoping big time that the Jazz were able to get it, going to be able to get their hands on. He's still very young, but you cover him most every night. How's the progress going year one for Cooper Flagg?
I mean, David Adelman, the Nuggets head coach, was asked about him last night, and, part of his answer was he's exactly what we thought he'd be. And I thought that's a pretty good way to sum it up. This guy was billed as a generational type of talent, and he's doing stuff as an 18-year-old that only one person in the history of the league has ever done, and that's LeBron James. And, he's statistically doing some things that even LeBron didn't do. For example, he came in here, played against the Lakers, had 11 assists. That's the most ever by an 18-year-old. The next night against the Clippers, guy's got 35 points, the youngest dude to ever do it. He's not scared at all of the moment. Like the Mavericks haven't won a lot of games, but his clutch numbers are phenomenal. I've seen this guy attack Giannis in a one-possession game in the final minute and finish over him. Cooper Flagg is a jump shot away from being terrifying, and his jumper needs to be completely remade. It's not a good shot. But man, he can do a lot of things awfully well, and he's going to fill out physically. I don't know if he's going to be an MVP, but this kid's going to be an All-NBA type of player for sure.
How do his teammates, and look, Kyrie's hurt, AD's been on the sideline, but it's pretty rare for a rookie that's entering a team with some Hall of Famers to be able to have the instant respect of his teammates. How do his teammates respond to him? Do they seem to see how special he could be?
No question. Klay Thompson, who's been playing better lately, but Klay was talking after the Clippers game the other night when Cooper had 35, and Klay actually was great in that game. But he referenced an old clip of Byron Scott from Kobe's rookie year. It was like old sage veteran, multi-time champion Byron Scott, just saying, hey, I'm telling you guys, this kid's going to be great. And Klay was saying, hey, I feel like B. Scott. And, Klay's kind of come around and realizes he's in the twilight of his career. And he said, you know what, I'm going to make the most of this. This is special to be around this kid and to try to help him, to try to, in whatever way, but maybe not even a mentoring thing, but you got any questions, here's how things done, whatever. So Klay's embracing just being around him, getting to witness the beginning, and it says, "Hey, we're gonna be watching this kid play for a long, long time." And like Kyrie, he's not playing, and we'll see if he plays this season. But he is working out. He is going through doing off dribble 1-on-1 against assistant coaches after practice. And when he's doing all that, Cooper Flagg's his shadow. Kyrie will show him a move, Cooper will repeat it, those sort of things. So there's definitely, these guys, they recognize this kid's talent and his potential, and I think they are enjoying trying to kind of help him, fulfill that and grow into that.
So biggest surprise, maybe the Phoenix Suns. I mean, we know the Dylan Brooks, LeBron stuff, and we saw the reunite of that flame last night. I expected them to be near the bottom of the standings, but they're 13-9. Is it fair to say maybe the biggest surprise in the West this year should be the Phoenix Suns?
Well, the Memphis Grizzlies expect them to be near the bottom of the standings. They thought that pick that they got, the Suns pick this year, was going to be the best deal in that, or the best asset in that Desmond Bane deal. But yeah, no, I agree with you. And I was at the game last night in LA. I've seen the Suns a couple times in person this year, and they found a coach, which is important because it's been a revolving door. Literally every year she's on the team, they fired the coach. Jordan's going to be the coach of the Phoenix Suns for a long time. Devin Booker loves him. The players love him. You see how hard they play. And it sounds simple, but playing hard is a skill, and they relentlessly play hard. And I'm telling you, Dylan Brooks was a huge part of establishing a culture that was desperately needed in Houston to get that thing turned around. The Phoenix Suns really needed a cultural reset, and they've kind of taken on the persona of Dylan Brooks. It is Devin Booker's franchise, but Dylan Brooks gives them that nastiness, that toughness, that kind of just wanting to scrap, wanting to be up in in your opponent's jersey, all those sort of things. He's kind of set the tone for them in terms of a mentality, and he's averaging 22 points and change. I'm not sure the scoring's going to continue like that for him, but I guarantee you this: there will be no let up in terms of the mentality.
Is this going to come down to Shea and Jokic again for MVP? I mean, is there anybody that exists with those two at this point?
Luka's got a chance to be in that conversation for sure. He's likely to lead the league in scoring. He's going to put up near triple-double type of numbers. I think for Luka to be in that conversation, the Lakers probably need to be a top 3 team in the West. But I would say, it's pretty likely it's going to be one of those 3 guys. And health obviously is a factor in all these things. I think if Victor wouldn't have missed games, that we might be talking about him in that conversation. But he's probably a year or 2 away. But I think it's probably a 3-horse race.
Before I say you lose, it was announced recently, and I hate this because I think a lot of people may at this point have just forgotten who Zion Williamson was when he was younger, what we thought he would be as a pro, and who he has been during stretches where he's remained healthy. He's going to be out at least 3 weeks. That was just announced. And I just wonder at what point, the Pelicans are 3-18. At what point do they start going, we got to figure something else out? And what sort of market would be out there for him? I mean, it would just take one GM that believes they could get him as a fully healthy star. I don't know if that's even possible. But at what point do they decide to figure something different there?
My goodness. I actually just saw the Pelicans the other night, and that's a depressing experience. Dude, can you believe they owe their freaking pick to the Hawks?
Yeah, it's wild. Yep.
My goodness. I mean, that's just it's not the worst trade that we've seen in recent years because Nico Harrison exists, but it's up there. But as far as Zion goes, man, it's just, I think it's not going to work in New Orleans for him. I don't know if it's going to work anywhere else. He's obviously a distressed asset. He can't stay healthy. He did actually get himself into shape, and he still can't stay healthy. Maybe with a change of scenery, the fortunes will change. I don't know, but John Morant, I think he's a distressed asset who people think is going to be available, and there's not a lot of excitement about. LaMelo Ball, Trae Young. I've actually got a story on those 3 guys tomorrow where there's a belief that all of them are available if you want them, and I'm having a hard time finding anybody to want them. And at some point, we're going to look at these guys, and I think there's going to be a couple. Remember the Russell Westbrook for John Wall trade?
Yep.
There's going to be, I think there might be 1 or 2 of those type of deals coming down where it's just like, all right, it ain't working here, it ain't working there. Let's trade places and see if that helps anybody.
All right, man. Well, look, we are getting close to Christmas, which means we really will lean into pro basketball coverage. Appreciate your time today, Tim. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We'll chat soon.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Great. Tim McMahon covers the NBA for ESPN. Used to cover the Jazz, but he's never here because the Jazz are unserious about competing, and that's kind of the deal. All right. I want to tell you about my friends at Outlaw Distillery. Outlaw Distillery is the official spirits provider of our VIP ESPN 700 tailgate at each home game this season. Unfortunately, no more home games. But Outlaw Distillery has amazing drinks like their honey bourbon, vodka, spiced rum, and coffee rum. Just came out with a new barrel-proof bourbon, which sits at 133 proof, very spicy, bold, and very smooth. Bottles left, so get yours today. Fantastic with an old-fashioned or mixed drinks. So check out every one of their options at Big Willie Sports Bar. Outlaw Distillery, truly a grain-to-glass product forged in the history of the American West. Check them out at outlawdistillery.com or found at all state liquor stores. If you're not a drinker of liquor, you're probably a drinker of water, like I am. You got to stay hydrated, bottom line. Alcohol will not do that, but water will. Our friends from Culligan Water, Kent and Colson, are live in the studio. Hey, let's start with the fact that you guys are partners with Devin Dampier, who just finished the season leading the Big 12 in QBR. You guys work with Utah's quarterback.
Absolutely, and the rest of the university. So, it's been a great partnership. Devin is a fantastic student, athlete. I mean, he's made high-quality decisions on the field and in his personal life, and one of the best decisions that he ever made was sign up with Culligan to get that high-quality H2O at his apartment and on the field.
I told you guys, recently I became kind of obsessed with hydration and drinking filtered water because I didn't really know why you're supposed to until maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I read, a whole book on why hydration is important, not just for your health in the interim, but, expanding your your lifespan, And so I really, it's all I drink. It's right here. I utilize the Culligan water. setup we have in the studio, and it's how I keep energy all show long. So let's start with health benefits of being properly hydrated and, most importantly, drinking the right type of water.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it starts with cognitive abilities, right? With your mood. It enhances brain function. It enhances kidney function. It helps with your digestion, with your joint lubrication. I mean, the benefits are incredible. And it all starts with, like you said, drinking the right type of water that's contaminant-free, that's purified. And Culligan has the best filtration products on the market to make sure that you are drinking the best quality water for you and your family. So there's a reason that we've been around. Like we were just talking about it off air. We've been around for 90 years.
That's awesome.
There are not a lot of companies that have been around for 90 years. And it's because Culligan puts out the quality of products that stand the test of time, and they speak for themselves. A warranty is only as good as the company that stands behind it. And you know that when you go with Culligan equipment, you're going to get the best quality and you're going to get the best warranties from the best service providers in Utah.
And I think the bottom line is there are probably a lot of people that have maybe heard like, yeah, I should look at my water filtration system. Yeah, we should drink better water, but they don't know. And so part one is getting them educated, right? Let's start with a consultation. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. If you give us a call, we can come out and give a free water consultation. So it's 801-509-9602. When we come to your home, we're going to go down into your utility room. We're going to look at the plumbing. We're going to see what the size of the pipe is, find out how many people are in the home, how much water you're actually using, test the water so we can show you the results. We can show you what's in your water. We can show you your chlorine levels. We can show you how hard the water is and how it changes over time. It's important for people to realize there's lots of companies out there that will sell you a water softener, right? They exist. Other companies have copied some of the stuff that Culligan's done for the last 100 years. However, Culligan's a company that we're in the service industry. We will continue to come out and test your water to make sure that the water and the equipment is calibrated correctly for the water that's fluctuating in and out of your home.
Because it's not just the water you drink, it's the water you use to wash your clothes that you put on your body, and the water you use to wash your dishes where you eat off of. So it's not just one section, and you guys offer a three-part approach here, and you also have a Black Friday extended deal. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you give us a call today, we can give you $500 off any of our smart products. You can bundle those together. So that's a water softener, a high-efficiency water softener, a reverse osmosis drinking water system, plus a whole home filter that will filter out all of the chlorine in your home. You can bundle all of those together, and you can save on the installation for free. But you got to give us a call today and book that free water test, 801-509-9602.
So a couple things. A, free consultation. B, if you bundle all three of their smart products, you save $1,500. C, if you do that, they'll install it for free. We're talking savings of about $2,000 with their Black Friday sale. But you have to call today. Our friends at Culligan Water, 801-509-9602. That's 801-509-9602, 801-509-9602, or online at CulliganSLC.com. Gentlemen, good to see you.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, we'll catch a break. Going to bring in Dave Fox. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Remember, tonight, if ESPN is not lying to us, they will bring the penultimate college football playoff rankings while we are on air in the 5 o'clock hour. I promised that before, and they've been like an hour late, so hopefully that's the deal. We'll bring them to you live. We'll let you know where Utah falls, and we'll let you know where BYU falls and what the top looks like. So college football, more or less the rest of the way, on a Tuesday edition of The Drive right here on ESPN 700.
mood kind of song. I really like it when I'm maybe unwinding, driving home after work or something like that.
Do you Google what are the 17-year-olds listening to before you come in studio?
I don't even. This is a tune I have on my phone. You know where I started listening to this a lot? When I ran Ragnar. I ran Ragnar 3 or 4 years, and I would play this in my headset as I kicked it off.
This guy. You want to brag about running Ragnar again?
That's not a brag. That's a mistake.
Wait. Let me ask you this.
Doing it.
Were you one of those people that had the Ragnar sticker on the back of your car? You were. Those people are the worst.
Only once or twice.
The two most bothersome car stickers are I ran the freaking Ragnar, and here's my proof. Or like the ones with 7 kids, and it's like,
I didn't do that one. Never did that one.
How long did you have the Ragnar sticker on the car?
Probably till the next one. A year.
Oh, you ran more than one. Look at you.
We ran 3.
See?
My family and I.
And how many Pelotons do you have?
Well, one tread and 1 bike.
So that's 2 Pelotons. Yeah. How many Emmys?
2.
2 Pelotons and 2 Emmys. Dave Fox, live in studio.
3 Ragnars, 2 Pelotons.
3 Ragnars, 2 Pelotons, 2 Emmys.
By the way,
what do you got?
The news today of the coaching stuff that's going on, it's just insane. But the one I can't believe, this is huge news. Not only do we have somebody who's taking a new position, but keeping their old one. That does not happen in this very often. But I am proud to say, you know who I'm talking about. You know this guy. Spence Checketts.
Oh, wait, are we announcing this today?
Well, why not? You're signed. You're on board. Spence Checketts is taking a new job.
I didn't. Okay, let's.
Is that okay?
No, it's fine for me.
Yeah.
I just don't know about you guys over there.
Why wouldn't I? I mean, you can get into our building now. That's frightening.
I do have a key card, so you guys are all in trouble. If you want to make the announcement, Dave, make the announcement.
I'm so excited. Okay, first of all, he's not leaving.
No, I'm not.
To quote the many sources like Kalani,
Indeed.
He's not leaving.
Correct.
But he is taking a new position. Spence Checketts is the latest and newest member of the Talkin' Sports, KUTV Talkin' Sports team, and we're so excited about that. We have a number of new hires coming in. You're actually the first one. We have 3 more coming. You'll be here. You'll be doing some podcasting, regularly podcasting. Get ready for that. We used to do this Sunday night segment, well, we still do, with a previous host, and we're going to kind of clean that up a little bit, and that'll be you.
Cleaning up is the right way to phrase that.
Yeah, professionalize it.
Yes, and that's another good term with the trade you're making.
Right, and the GOAT, you love him, will be doing that segment with you on Sunday nights. As I look further down the road, talking RSL, which you're like the father of the talking shows. You and Dunny. I'm going to assume we're going to have Dunny back, by the way, but that'll be an exciting time. You may see him. You'll still see him doing some talking jazz, maybe even some talking hockey, 5 questions. All that stuff will continue. Might even see you doing some post analysis for us at jazz games or Mammoth games, whatever. He's just available, and he is on our sports team. And here's the funny part, and this is so Spence. He tells me day 1. Oh, by the way, I'm on vacation this week.
I've had this trip planned for a while.
And it's the best. And I think you probably mentioned it to us. I kind of forgot about it.
Well, it's only Friday to Sunday. Yeah, it's not like a long trip.
The 3 of the days that you work. But no, it's great. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
This is great. And so you're probably going to be seeing more of Spence than you ever had before on Channel 2 and KJAZ and KMYU. Good stuff.
No, I'm very excited to be joining the team officially. I've kind of been an adopted son for like 15 years.
Kind of have.
Coming over there just to do shows and then, I don't know, just programming your entire station with no credit. But ultimately, you and Ken have been great, and I'm excited that we got it across the line. It's really fun.
And you know what's really funny is you talked about how you've been a kind of a stepchild for a long time. Our HR rep said to me the other day, he says, now, I want you to meet Spence here and show him around and kind of let him see, what we got going, what we're doing here. I said, hey, he's been in our building for 15 years.
Yeah.
I think he knows his way to the men's room, and as you do. So, but it's fun. You kind of had a little desk and a computer there to kind of kick things off.
Very official.
And so welcome aboard.
No, I appreciate it. I'm excited, and obviously, my afternoon drive show here continues.
Yes,
so it'll be fun to do a couple of different things, and I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to explore the TV side of the business, which, of course, has been your home for 30-plus years. So.
Who knows? Maybe one day you'll have my position.
Well, we want you to stick around as long as possible, but at someday, someday you, like Coach Witt, will decide you want to go do other things.
Exactly.
Potentially.
So, and you'll be right there.
And I'll just slide right into the Dave Fox role.
Exactly.
Speaking of Coach Witt, let's actually zig when everyone else is zagging and start with Utah football before we end with BYU football. I have, and maybe this is just simply me wanting to be respectful of a man who I appreciate both as a person and as a coach for a number of years. I've never been one to be like, yeah, he's done, or he should step aside, or whatever. Because honestly, I didn't know. And then honestly, I believe he has earned the right to tell us when he's done. This is the first week where I feel confident saying into a microphone, I think the deadline is on Friday, and prior to Friday, we will hear that Kyle is retiring. Do you agree? Do you think it's done?
I don't necessarily agree that that's going to happen.
Oh, interesting.
I don't really know how to, because as you said, you don't want to rain on his parade, but I have no insight at all onto what he's thinking. No one does. If anyone tells you that they do, they're wrong, because it's a very personal decision that he's going to have to make with his wife, and his family. So, but I appreciate the idea. I would think there's two things. One, it's early signing period. And I'm almost surprised in that respect that they're waiting until Friday, because you want it. That's part of the reason I think this Kalani thing has gotten done so quickly. Other than maybe if he announces he's staying for another year. But two, he still has a really good team coming back.
He does.
I mean, you can say that on and on and on and on, but and it's not the unfinished business he left last year. Certainly 10-2 is nothing to sneeze at. He's a good record. So I don't know. That's an interesting one. On the other hand, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that wants a farewell tour. Remember when they were doing those in the NBA all the time? And guys got gifts everywhere they went. So that would be another reason, to announce that, you're leaving, because if you announce that you're staying, but next year is your last year, now he's going to go through the farewell tour, and I don't know if that's his style. Because remember, he said, when I go, I'm just going to up and go. That's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the timing's right either way, but I don't have any I'll defer to your gut feeling and jump on board with you. How's that?
Well, okay.
Because I have no feeling, honestly, either way, which way it's going to go.
Well, let me just tell you some of the dots I'm connecting. And look, I could totally be wrong, because he's in great physical shape. He certainly loves to coach. He's certainly damn good at it. And to your point, they've got a good team coming back next year, and maybe he looks at that and says, okay, maybe I can actually take another step and we can play for a conference championship. My first kind of inkling, Sean O'Connell, who hosts our midday show, who played up there, has believed all year this is it. So I've kind of gone off of his feedback. Other, alums and former Ute players who I know believe the same thing. I have not been told by anybody up there that this is the deal. But after the K-State game, final home game, senior day, Kyle takes the podium and becomes emotional. And I think what was kind of lost in that is the sentence that sent him. He was talking about his players. He was talking about his seniors. But then he said, quote, the last chance at Rice Eccles. That's when he got emotional. That sentence is what bred the emotion.
But wasn't he talking about the seniors?
No. This is the problem. And this is why it's good that I'm joining your team, so I can clean some of this unprofessionalism up.
Oh, thank goodness.
Okay, so he was talking about his players, no emotion. Was talking about his seniors, no emotion. When he said their last chance at Rice Eccles, that's when he choked up. Because then he said, I'm sorry I get emotional when talking about my seniors. I'm like, no, you don't. I've been covering this for 20 years. I've never seen you cry about your players. So that little peak right there, okay? Also, I had him on the show during BYU Utah week. And for the first time, I felt comfortable, and I honestly felt it was appropriate just to kind of allude to the fact, like, hey, we know this is kind of the December of your career. What sort of dynamics do you weigh before you actually decide whether to come or go? And he said, I just don't want to overstay my welcome. And I think in the past, he would just shut the question down and say, hey, we got BYU this week. That's where my focus is. Yeah. Finally, last Friday, after the win against Kansas, he said after the game, for the first time, that he was going to walk away last year. But because the season turned out to be such a catastrophe, he wanted to come back and make sure he left it in a good place. 14 P4 teams won 10 games this year, Dave. Utah football just had an awesome season. It's being overshadowed because their rival's about to play for the conference championship. But that box is checked. He came back. They win 10 games. It feels like the program is in good hands. So, again,
okay, you're selling me on this.
Well, nobody's told me, but that's my reasoning as to believe why this is it.
Okay, I can go along with that, too. And the other thing you have to remember is he has a phenomenal retirement package, one that we would all of us would dream of having. So, in that respect, certainly he doesn't need to hang around for money. We know that,
right?
And he's got that great retirement package. So, some of the things you're putting together make a lot of sense. I know he's still going to try to downplay this somehow. He won't be able to get away with that. So how do the Utes position that? If he announces Friday, I am retiring, when is the press conference? How do they get in the way of bowl preparation? I wonder how that's going to play out.
Yeah. Well,
because it almost feels like it would make more. They don't have to do a search, so that's easy.
Yeah.
So it would almost make more sense to do it after the bowl game, unless you are leaving and then the bowl game is your public farewell.
Yeah, you referenced signing day. I would imagine,
which is tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, I would imagine, for the sake of transparency, any player signing tomorrow knows the deal, because I'm sure Kyle wanted to be clear with that. As far as the bowl game, I hate to.
Probably doesn't matter.
Well, I just hate to say this. Bowls have long been oversaturated, where a lot of them didn't matter at all. Like, if you're not, back in the day, it was like, oh, it's not a New Year's Six, or it's no, it's not BCS. Now with the expanded 12-team CFP,
yeah, they're meaningless. You're right.
If you're not playing in one of those, like the Vegas Bowl's a good bowl game, and it might be Iowa, who's a good team. Like, that's probably one of the top 5 non-playoff bowl games. But at the end of the day, does it really even matter that much?
Probably not. And
will Spencer Fano even play?
Well, a number of those guys probably won't. It is easy for the fans to get to it, but you're right. The with the CFP the way it is, and it's only it's going to grow. It always does. They'll become even more meaningless. So it's very interesting. I guess I'm almost more curious to see how he's going to handle it versus when what he's going to announce, because he's insistent on just quietly going away. That's not going to happen. There's going to be a massive press conference up at the U. Where everyone's going to honor him, and it's going to be a great day for him. But again, they avoid that whole search thing, so there's not a time issue in that respect. Oh, we need you to make this announcement because we got to get that new coach in before such and such a date. Doesn't matter now.
Yeah, I know, to your point, he's not like a farewell tour guy. I do think there are a lot of people that are Utah fans that live in this community that would like the chance to say thank you to him. And I know that's not necessarily something that would be important to him, but I wonder if there's anyone that could get in his ear and just be like, people here love you, and people here respect you and are grateful for what you've done to take a football program to a level that many people didn't think was possible back in the day. And due respect to Mac, who took over and kind of laid this foundation, and Urban takes over with a 2-year Wonderkins boom rise. But Kyle was the steward of this program for 2 decades. That now is probably one of the top 4 or 5 programs in the Western United States. I think there are a lot of people that would just like the chance to show some appreciation.
Honestly, I'd like to see the farewell tour myself. It doesn't have to be outlandish, but I would like to see him announce Friday that next year will be my final season.
Mm-hmm.
I personally would love to see that, because that's really what he deserves. Didn't Lavelle do that, or did he not?
I don't remember.
Now, his program was not in a great spot. Remember when he was going into retirement, but I personally, that's what I would like to see. You may be right, but my hope is he announces Friday that next year will be his last season. And I could be dead wrong.
Gives people proper time to kind of pay respects and such. Yeah, we'll see. It's kind of interesting. All right. In our business, we say don't bury the lead, but we did that because the lead clearly has been the past 72 hours of what's happened in between Provo and Penn State, where, Kalani Sitake apparently had a very lucrative offer from the Nittany Lions to go take over that program. The story has ended, according to Pete Thamel, with Kalani staying in Provo. What this means, Dave, and we don't know what the numbers are, and we won't know because BYU is a private institution. Somebody probably will uncover some sort of detail. But what it has to mean is BYU at least approached what Penn State was offering. And what that means is, for the first time in the history of BYU football, they're actually paying a football coach market value for what he deserves. And let's be clear, he does deserve this. 22-3 in his last 25 games. They're playing the biggest football game the program has had on Saturday, probably since '84 in the Holiday Bowl. There's no doubt that he deserves this. Are you surprised that BYU stepped up?
I'm not surprised at all. And you and I talked briefly about this yesterday morning, by the way, and neither one of us thought he was leaving.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people in fandom don't realize is the value of, what the family means, the quality of life. I'm not saying State College is a terrible place. I've been there, and I didn't love it.
I went to a BYU Penn State game in like 92 there. It's pretty desolate.
Yeah,
Bobby and I
Bob
and I called it a camping trip.
Yeah,
if you're going to play Penn State, it's a camping trip. Yeah.
I actually broadcasted a BYU Penn State. It was in the Holiday Bowl, 89-ish, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think either of us and most people I know ever thought he was leaving.
Yeah.
I think this was about what it is. And it's too bad that it had to come to this. He needed this to get the attention of the people running that program.
Mm-hmm.
They're unloading all kinds of money on a basketball player who's going to be there for 3 months, and he deserves this. The program deserves this. His assistant coaches deserve this. From what I'm understanding, that's a big part of it. I think this is less about Kalani and more about two things: his assistants and the NIL program. And that boost is what it really needs. Now, think of how well he's done. I'm not saying the NIL program is sorely lacking, but if he needs it to step up, he's done awfully well with it the way it is.
Sure has.
And we're still in the infancy of all this, by the way. But I'm happy for him. I don't know, it's going to say it's unfortunate, but it's interesting that he had to go this route, because I don't think Kalani ever wanted to go. And by the way, you go to Penn State, you could start 3-3 and lose your job. Oh wait, that happened this year. I mean, the standard of excellence is absurd.
The pressure is
it's off the charts.
And there is pressure to be BYU's football coach, but there's also security for a guy like Kalani, who has already been there a decade plus. He's only 50. He could coach another 15, 20 years if he wanted to.
Played there. He's a BYU guy.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
family's all from here. I mean, I think it's great for him.
It does come down to what you value, because there was part of me, like, look, I believe the following is going to happen. I think BYU's losing Saturday to Texas Tech. Then I think they're going to be left out of the CFP, which means they finished the regular season at 11-1, and their one loss is to a team that most people believe is top 5. Then they go to the conference championship game, lose to the same top 5 team, and that's not enough to get in. So part of me wonders if Kalani does his calculation and says, can I win a national championship at BYU? Can I crack a CFP at BYU? 11-1 with one loss to a top 5 team is a hell of a season. You do that at Penn State, you're not only in the CFP, you're hosting a home game, and you might get a bye. So part of me wondered if Kalani, the competitor, would want to see if his formula would work at a place like Penn State. But I also can't hate on anyone for taking the job security.
Well, and maybe what he's asking for, and I understand there's even some facility improvements, which, by the way, I think they have great facilities. But at any rate, maybe he feels like that is what he needs to get them to that level. I mean, it seems crazy because they're almost there now. But in order, you know how you start building a team to beat a certain team. You see this in every sport.
Sure,
NBA team. Oh, we stack this team so that we could beat the Lakers or whatever the case may be. And he may be looking at that same thing. What do I have to do to get over the hump against a team like Texas Tech? Well, an extra $15 million in NIL would probably help me do that. Texas Tech is unbelievable with NIL. I mean, they paid a softball player $1 million. I mean, that's how.
And they went to the World Series.
They went to the World Series. Yeah. So that's probably the way he views it. Less of, well, I know I can do this at Penn State. I'm not sure I can do it here. I think he wholeheartedly believes he can do it, keep his coaching staff intact, boost that roster. I think he did it, pretty much the right way. I'm surprised there hasn't been any official announcement yet, but I'm guessing there's still issues going on with getting this contract done or whatever the case may be, but especially with signing day tomorrow. And hopefully there will be something official coming out from BYU or Kalani or whatever the case may be. But I never, ever thought he was going, and smart guy used this to his advantage, and it's only going to make that program better.
Yeah, it's probably dotting I's and crossing T's. Yeah. According to 247, BYU has the second best recruiting class in the Big 12 next year to Texas Tech. Ryder Lyons, as you referenced, 5-star quarterback, and probably one of the reasons you wanted to get this done as soon as you possibly could. And, oh, by the way, you have a big game on Saturday, so remove this distraction.
Ryder Lyons, 14-month mission.
I really wish that was a thing when I was growing up. I may have went. No, probably not. But, if that was an option.
You would have needed more than 6-month kind of deal.
I made it 8 days, bro. It was the best 8 days of my life, as I always say.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. It was
Where were you?
Only Provo. You can't be anywhere.
Oh, that's true.
You have to be in the MTC for months, right?
Yeah, but there are some, like my son went to Brazil on his mission. The MTC is down there.
Well, the whole thing is different
so he
now.
was down there.
No, my son was like dating a girl, and he said goodbye because she went on a mission. And then a week later, I'm like, hey, what are you doing tonight? He's like, I'm going to blah, blah, blah's house for dinner. I'm like, wait, she went on a mission. He's like, no, the MTC is in her house. We're just going to have dinner.
That's right. They do a lot of that now. My grandson did that. Yeah.
2-hour church.
Yeah.
1-year mission if you're a good athlete. Like, where was this when I was rolling around as a kid?
You'd be a whole different person right now.
I don't know. I chose truth. All right, Dave, what's coming up on Talking Sports tonight?
Well, tonight we have Talking Jazz. You're well-versed, but your good buddy, Spence Checketts, David Locke. Yeah.
Locke tonight.
Yes, we have Locke. You know, he's
Very
great.
nice.
Let me just tell you something. This is a very interesting topic. He's breaking down every rookie outside of – we know Keontae's great. We know Ace Bailey's. He's going to be fun. He's so great. What about the remaining? There's 6 there that we're talking about.
So just like the younger players.
The younger players.
Not the rookies, yeah.
Are they on pace? Are they lagging behind? Are they a mistake? And he breaks down each one of them, and lets you know where he thinks they're at and where they're going. It's very interesting. I'm looking forward to that tonight on KMYU.
Will he have his pom-poms, or is he just going to show up?
No, he's less pom-pomish than some, but no one's less than you. So that's the beauty of having you on rotating through there.
Authenticity, baby.
Yeah, you never breed them.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
David, great to see you again.
Man.
Thank you. I'm excited to be part of the KUTV family officially.
We love having you. You got to come to the Christmas party now.
When's the Christmas party?
It's on December 18th, I think. It's a lunch.
It's a lunch?
Yeah.
What are we talking, Jimmy John's?
No, they do it up on the 23rd floor. I'll get you all the info. You need to be there.
I don't know.
You got to start schmoozing the clients, man.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's what I need to do.
This exorbitant salary.
If that's what I need to do, I'm happy to join you for the holiday lunch.
Man.
Thanks, Dave.
See ya.
All right. The great Dave Fox. You can see him tonight with our guy, David Locke, talking jazz, 10:35 on KMYU. Definitely check it out. We will bring you the CFP release live unless ESPN has lied to us. They claim that they are going to bring the CFP release, the penultimate CFP release momentarily. But before we catch a break, hydration is important. I learned this about 5-6 years ago. Probably should have learned it when I was younger, but it's really changed my life. All I do is drink water during the show. Keeps my energy up. I used to drink like energy drinks and coffee all day. Horrible. So A, hydration is important as far as the water that you drink. B, the water that you use to wash your clothes and wash your dishes. Also important that you have the right water softening, filtration. All the things that you need, our friends at Culligan Water can provide you. And Kenton Colson live in studio once again. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
We're doing great, man.
Okay, first of all, you are partners with Utah football, namely Devin Dampier and some of the other players. Talk about the partnership.
You know, it's been really fun for us. It's been really fun to partner with Devin. You know, he had an incredible year. Hydrated, high-powered offense, you know, everything in between, all supported by, like you said, optimal hydration. You know, it's been fun to be on campus. It's been fun to, you know, see how those guys train. And if they don't have the right hydration, holy cow, you know, you can go downhill quick. And so it's been a fun partnership.
Drinking water consistently and drinking filtered water consistently has literally changed my life. I sleep better. My workouts are better. I have better energy during the day. And I just didn't know, and probably a lot of our listeners aren't necessarily educated. So let's talk about the consultation, how you can help them understand how better water can help their quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, when I go out into a home and I'm having a consultation, I'll share personal experience. I've got 2 kids that play competitive soccer, right? And it's common. My daughter's high school age is now like, can't believe how many of her teammates are drinking energy drinks to get up for games. And it's really nice to know that my kids love to drink water because to them it tastes really good. They notice a difference between other water and Culligan water. And it's funny how many teammates over time, like they run out of water, they're drinking my kids' water, and then their parents are coming to me like, Where'd your kid get this water? I got to get some of this water. So it makes a big difference. But we'll come to your home. We'll test your water. We'll show you what's in your water. Most people don't know. Like the municipalities, their responsibility is to give you water that's clean, clear, and free of bacteria. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's what you want to consume and what you want having run through your pipes. So we can show you what's in your water. and how we can treat that water and take care of you.
Outside of the obvious that people know about water, which is I drink it, and if it's filtered and it tastes good, I feel better. What other benefits do you see from the properly filtered or soft water that people use to wash their clothes and wash their dishes?
Yeah, it's like we talked about earlier. I mean, you can expect 50% longer lifespan of all water-using appliances just with the right type of water filtration. So think about your dishwashers. Think about your water heaters. Think about your laundry machines. All that will be able to maintain its efficiency and prolong the lifespan of all those appliances by 50%.
Okay, bottom line is you guys have extended your Black Friday offer. So for listeners that have long wondered, when is the right time to do this? When is the best time to help my family improve quality of life with better water? There's not a better time than today. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's probably listeners out there thinking, I've got a softener, but I don't even know if it works.
Yeah.
Give us a call because you can take advantage of this great deal. $500 off any of our smart units. Give us a call, 801-509-9602. Let us come out and test your water for free. We'll answer any questions that you might have, show what we can do for your water treatment needs, and then take advantage of these great savings. $500 off any of these smart units.
But you got to call today. If you bundle all three, you save $1,500 in total, but then they will install it for free, making your savings $2,000, basically, bottom line. Water softening, water filtration, ice and water dispensers, and more. By the way, residential, commercial, and your home. So not just at your home, if you're a business owner as well. To take advantage of this offer, you have to call today. You have to call right now at 801-509-9602. That's 801-509-9602, 801-509-9602, or online at ColganSLC.com. Gentlemen, great to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, before we catch a break, who likes money? Porter, for the sake of the bit, do you like money, young man?
Love it.
Look at you. You've learned. Porter does actually like money.
Man with gold.
Makes the rules. And if you're listening, my guess is you like money. Well, the problem is it comes down to your banking situation as to whether or not your money is working for you, right? Let's help you make your money work for you, help you as far as your money doing more for you. If you're with a big national branch, if you're with a big national brand, the dirty little secret is your money is not working for you. You're actually in business to make your bank rich. You're in business to make your bank money. Even if you're with some of the local brands, your money is not working for you. You're basically part of an ecosystem that is making them rich. That's where credit unions are different. They are not for profit. They are for you to help your money do more for you. And our friends at America First Credit Union, who, by the way, are the official credit union of the University of Utah Athletic Department, of our friends with Real Salt Lake, and also our friends down at the Utah Jazz, they have a great new member offer. First of all, you can get access to all these venues early, whether it's Rice Eccles, America First Field, or the Delta Center. A grip of discounts on food and bev, merch, you name it. Also special ticketing deals to Utah games, to RSL games, to Jazz games as well. You can cater your debit card to your favorite team. They just released this awesome new Jazz debit card as well. And they're incentivizing you to make the switch. I know it might feel inconvenient, but it is worth it because your money is important. They're giving you $100 if you open a checking or a savings account, just on the house, no strings attached, $100 just to make the switch. And it's also never too early to teach your children about how money works. So if you have a teenager or a 12, 13-year-old and you're kind of wondering how you can help them understand the way money works so you can get them off to a good head start in life, they're offering you $50 if you open up a checkings and savings account for your teen. So it's our friends at America First Credit Union. They have 87 branches here locally, so you can stop by. Very easy to do. You can also just go to americafirst.com/deals for all the information. Our good friends at America First Credit Union helping your money do more for you. We'll catch a break. 5 o'clock hours next on ESPN 700. All right, let's get it. Drive at 5 time. Tuesday afternoon style, cold, chilly day. It's about 34 degrees right now, cloudy outside of our downtown Broadway media studios. Looks like we might get some rain and snow tonight. But as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Some breaking news from earlier. Kalani Sitake is staying put. He will remain at BYU after a brief flirtation with Penn State. No news officially on what the contract details will look like or how that's going to go down. But you have to imagine BYU, led by the CEO of Crumble Cookie, who answers the question, what would a cookie look like in human form? Our Cookie Bro stepped up along with some other BYU alums, and Kalani will stay. Now, the College Football Playoff Top 25 list is being released as we speak. In fact, it is in. Utah fell a little bit, as we thought they might. Vanderbilt jumps the Utes, and Utah is now at 15. BYU remains at 11, which is not great news for BYU, albeit expected news for BYU. Remember, BYU has to jump up in the top 10 in order for them to make it into the CFP as an at-large. Texas Tech does move up a spot. Texas A&M, of course, lost to Texas. They dropped 4 spots to 7. So Texas Tech is in at number 4. BYU would be considered the first team out at 11. The second team out would be Miami at 12. No real surprise as far as the top teams go. Ohio State remains at 1. Indiana remains at 2. Georgia now moves up to 3 as a result of A&M's loss. As I referenced, Texas Tech is now at 4. So those would be your top 4 teams. As far as teams that would essentially get a bye into the quarterfinals, BYU would be considered the last team out, according to this current model, and then Miami right behind BYU. Now, a lot of people were believing that potentially Miami, as a result of their head-to-head win over Notre Dame, might get the benefit of the doubt and jump up. Now, slots 11 and 12 are saved for conference champ number 4 and then conference champ number 5. Maybe a bit of a surprise as Ole Miss actually jumped up to 6th, even though their head coach is leaving to take the LSU job. So Ole Miss is at 6. Oregon's the team I missed. Oregon is at 5. So just to reset, Ohio State 1. They would have a bye. Ohio State in this model would take on the winner of Alabama and Oklahoma. Indiana at number 2. Of course, Indiana has a chance to change this coming up this weekend in the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State. Indiana would play the winner of Notre Dame, Texas Tech. Georgia would be at 3. They would play the winner of Ole Miss and conference champ number 4, which, of course, is yet to be determined. Texas Tech at 4 would play the winner of Oregon and conference champ number 5. So BYU falls one spot. BYU stays at 11. Utah falls to 15 as Vanderbilt has now jumped the University of Utah. So if you're a Ute fan, a 10-2 season, a 7-2 season in conference play, and a top 15 ranking with the penultimate CFP rankings released tonight, that is a hell of a season. The problem is it's overshadowed because BYU at 11-1 will play for a conference championship coming up on Saturday. 10 a.m. kick, by the way, down in Arlington. BYU is a 12.5-point dog. The spread opened up as Texas as an 11.5-point favorite. It went up to went up to 12. BYU a 12.5-point underdog as of now against Texas Tech. But the news today that Kalani is staying at BYU removes the distraction prior to one of the biggest football games that BYU has ever played, if we're honest, and potentially the biggest football game that BYU has played since 1984. And that's what kind of made this dynamic and the timing of it a little bit complicated. Oh, by the way, signing day is tomorrow as well. Now, signing day doesn't carry the same weight as it once did because of the transfer portal and the potential to add talent to your team, even outside of signing day, which is a day that we covered once upon a time, more or less start to finish all day long. But BYU, according to 247 Sports, has the second highest ranked signing class tomorrow, only to Texas Tech. Texas Tech is 1, BYU is 2. Meaning it was more or less vital and prescient, if I could steal a term, for BYU to get this done as soon as they possibly could. That's why starting the day today, it was really difficult to really understand what was going on because there was no news. And even the news cycle this morning, up until Pete Thamel's report that Kalani had decided to stay, a lot of people were surmising that it was going to be Penn State. And honestly, there was a moment in time where I believe that was going to be the case because if you're Penn State, you are now desperate. You elected to move on from a coach in James Franklin that more or less year after year did win 10 games for you in a very difficult conference. Now, James Franklin, in the biggest of big stages, in the biggest of big games, oftentimes did not get it done. But that's the pressure cooker that is Penn State football, and that's what Kalani would have had to deal with if he elected to leave Provo for Happy Valley. Wait a second. That really doesn't work. There are two Happy Valleys in this scenario. I'm just realizing this.
Yeah.
You can't say leave Provo for Happy Valley where Provo is Happy Valley for so many people.
Yeah, I saw somebody yesterday, like when this stuff was really getting tricky, tweet, their sources confirmed that Kalani was headed to Happy Valley. And some people didn't get the joke and ran with it. Some people did. Great tweet, though.
I don't know why that didn't occur to me until I actually said it out loud. Because you can't leave Provo for Happy Valley when Provo is Happy Valley.
This is the place.
You could leave, it sure is. Well said. You could leave Provo for State College, Pennsylvania, but you can't leave one Happy Valley for the other. I will say this. Have you ever been to State College? Have you ever been to Penn State?
I have not.
It is desolate, dude. I only went once. BYU played Penn State in 92. It was the Bobby Knight quote. I think Matt Brown dropped it on the show this week when Bobby Knight said, if you go play Penn State, essentially you're taking a camping trip.
The only, outside of course, them having more money than almost any program in college football, the only real reason that I saw as motivation for Kalani was if he sees that as a stepping stone maybe to the NFL, maybe to taking over the world as a football coach, right? Like if your ultimate goal as a player is usually 1A, coach at your alma mater and bring them to the glory, right? And 1B or maybe 1A, depending on who you are, is beyond that. It's a Super Bowl with whoever it is in the NFL. And, I don't know where Kalani's thinking is as far as his long-term legacy, but man, what he did this week is akin to what Kyle Whittingham did in 2010 when Tennessee very much thought they had their head football coach, and Kyle instead turned it into facilities, staff improvements, all of the above that gave Utah a little bit of a foundation for the Pac-12. And now Kalani is kind of, since he saw that first row seat, I think followed in those footsteps.
Yeah, it's a good comparison, good analogy. Hunter Yurachek is nervously answering questions, the playoff committee chair, as the penultimate CFP rankings have been released tonight. Beaver Stadium holds 106,000 people. I'd never seen a college football environment like that before.
Yeah.
I was blown away. Let's see. Lavelle Edwards is what, 62,000?
I want to say the record's around 64, but it doesn't technically hold that much.
You're talking about almost 50,000 more fans than Lavelle Edwards Stadium.
It's crazy.
And Rice Eccles is what, 42, thereabouts?
Rice Eccles is 51.
51. So basically double Rice Eccles. It's two Rice Eccles stadiums. That's where Penn State plays football.
I've seen pro stadiums. I've been to Death Valley, done a few of the SEC ones, but yeah, it's a different situation. I'll tell you what, the way that Kalani, recruiting might be a tricky thing if he were to go east. I don't know how it might take a minute, or he'd have to hire some guys that really know that footprint. But as far as him in a stadium full of fans with a team behind him, I would like to see that.
Yeah.
He's just a guy that brings a lot of energy. That'd be fun.
He is. And the other piece of good news, because to Porter's point, the recruiting footprint would change a lot as it pertains to. Now, the nice thing about both BYU and Utah, quite frankly, and the modern state of both programs, once upon a time, both schools really tried to recruit Utah hard, maybe grab some California kids, be a little bit more local with this footprint. Now both staffs recruit all over the country. When you look at both rosters, it's Florida, it's back east, it's down south. Of course, it's out this way. It's California, it's Pacific Northwest. The recruiting footprint would have changed for Kalani as far as the challenge of recruiting players to Penn State. But the other piece of good news is the reports were, and we had Monson in studio earlier, there would have been a bit of a mass exodus. You know, Kalani was reportedly trying to bring A-Rod and Jay with him. And I would imagine a lot of the players that are set to come back and play for BYU would have been able to put some money in their back pocket and head to College Station and play for Penn State. And what would it have meant for a recruiting class that is thought to be the best in BYU football history and the second best in the Big 12 next year, namely Ryder Lyons, who is already looking at the potential possibility of sitting behind Bear Bachmeier, who is a freshman, non-LDS kid who won't be going on a mission. So if you're a BYU fan, today is a good day for you. And it's also a good day for Brian Santiago. I thought it was a big moment for the new AD. But the crazy news cycle of the past 72 hours culminates with BYU keeping their head coach, as Kalani will stay. We'll catch a break. Voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, joins us coming up next on ESPN 700. Every once in a while, hear an announcement that a player retired that I totally didn't know was still playing. So Danilo Gallinari retired from pro basketball today. And I don't know that I had heard Danilo Gallinari's name in a number of years. Now, he was a very good NBA player for a long time. My favorite Danilo Gallinari story is in 2011 when the Kardashians started to burst on the scene as, being the Kardashians, ushering in this era of you can be famous with no skill at all. You can just be famous without being good at everything or anything, Kim Kardashian reached out to Danilo Gallinari's rep and was like, hey, I want to date him. And he was like, no, I'm good. Thanks. And passed. She then went on to ruin Chris Humphrey's life. So that's my Danilo Gallinari story. He was a Knick. I got to say, I had no idea he was still playing basketball.
I'd seen him shooting some hoops. But yeah, not the player. Listen, there was a time when Danilo Gallinari was a legitimate a piece. 6'10" guy who could shoot it. Yeah. I wasn't a great defender for the most part, but 6'10" guy who could play make, shot maker. Probably a little better if he was like a rookie today, right? Just the dynamic he has, the way he spreads the floor. But yeah, kind of an obscure one there.
Yeah. I just love the fact that Kim Kardashian was like, I pick you. And he's like, nope, I'm good. Go ruin someone else's life.
I kind of like that he probably just had no, being an Italian kid, had no idea, who that is or why she's famous because she's, never mind.
We can leave that there. Utah basketball tonight. They're taking on Cal. This is actually worth your time. It's on a TV station called ACC Extra. Zero clue what that is. Cal beat UCLA not too long ago. Utah kind of a under-the-radar win against Mississippi. I think it was Mississippi State. So 8 o'clock tonight. That will come your way. Bill will have that for you. The penultimate release of the CFP rankings took place just under an hour ago. BYU stays at 11, which basically means they've got to win on Saturday to get in. No surprise. Utah falls to 15. Vandy jumps them. Biggest surprise, I think, for most is Ole Miss actually was bumped up to 6th, even though Lane Kiffin is gone. Basically, the top remains the same. Of course, A&M lost, so they fall. Your buys would go to Ohio State, Indiana, in addition to Georgia and Texas Tech. So there you go. But still a few things left to play for coming up conference championship weekend. Technically, BYU would be the first team out of the 12-team CFP. The 72-hour news cycle culminated with Kalani Sitake remaining in Provo. We'll see if we have details prior to tomorrow's show. But we will say goodnight. Porter, speaking of tomorrow's show, what comes our way on a Wednesday edition of the program?
On a Wednesday edition of The Drive, we'll chat with our friend, our weekly guest, Chris Kamrani, stops by the program. Kyle Bonagura stops by the program. Not many guys better to talk some coaching in college football in that regard. Hey, maybe some U.S. men's national team with him as well. Kenneth Gooby Scott joins the show, as does one DK from NY.
Wow, a little Danny Cannell sighting on a Wednesday show. That'll be fun. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you. Bill Riley, Max Brown, Gordon Monson, Tim McMahon, Dave Fox. A lot of good stuff today. If you missed any of it, there's good news. It's up online because it's 2025. Go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. The ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 full hours, check out our podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows, so please subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. It helps out the show if you take some time to do that. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Enjoy some Utah men's basketball, and we'll talk to you on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. And as always, you can catch that right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.